What's up, family? Give me 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. All right. Okay. Peace and shalom, family. What's good? This is Divine Prospect Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. We're here with another Freestyle Friday, but I didn't call it Freestyle Friday because this is supposed to be a discussion with the Nuwaupian. Unfortunately, 3 Nuwaupians flaked on this discussion. So, looks like I'm not going to have that discussion tonight, which is interesting because I put a lot of stuff outside. I got a crash course I got to teach that I was supposed to teach. I got some other research that I'm working on, some material that I'm writing up. Then I got to pay for the Sabbath, and then our family, and then it's just a lot, right? I'm hungry. Didn't even finish my food because I was trying to rush and get this taken care of. But anyway, so as I have a discussion with Wapian, so shout out to the family that's in the building right now. Those of you who are, returning subscribers and returning viewers to Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. Those of you who are not on social media outside of YouTube, I have a flyer that I put up. I'll show it to you in 1 second. That I put up because I was supposed to have a discussion with a young brother who was a Nuwaupian, and he was schooling me that my Hebrew doctrine was going to set me up to be food for the gods. I've never heard anybody say that to me before. I was extremely troubled when I heard that. Well, when I read it, actually, it was on Facebook, and I couldn't get no sleep. Cannot get no sleep. I was just picturing all of these Mesopotamian, Sumerian images in my mind of these deities on clay tablets, and being on the banquet menu. I asked these brothers for intervention. I don't want to be on nobody's plate. You feel me? Unfortunately, they all abandoned me. And now I'm left to defend against the Anunnaki Elohim. Why they do your brother like that? Those of you who are here from social media because you saw the flyer, it was posted on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It had over 100 shares. And those of you who are here because you've seen the flyer, I apologize for being late. I'm almost an hour late. I was trying to contact the brother before midnight. I got on Facebook Live. I tagged him on Facebook. Now, mind you, it was initially supposed to be one brother and his elder. The elder reneged. The brother said, okay, he'll do it. The brother then had an emergency come up with the preliminary discussion yesterday at 11 p.m. on Facebook Live. He couldn't do it. Then today he told me that he wasn't going to be able to do it today because he had personal issues to take care of. But then he told me afterwards that his elder told him to stand down, that he's too young in this, and he doesn't have enough experience in years to have a discussion like this to represent the Nuwaupian nation. I said, cool, I respected it. He went and saw the video that I made yesterday on Facebook Live and told me that he's going to rebut the video because, my position was, I was speaking like I was a Greek and not an African. Okay. But much love to that brother Canoe. Shout out to you, brother Canoe. Much love to you. I've been knowing that brother for several years now. Good brother. He got a good heart. He's a little overzealous, but he has a good heart. You know what I mean? Good brother. So him and his elder stood down, right? Then I made a post, right? I threw a Hail Mary. Said, listen, anybody know Nuwaupian that definitely want to have a discussion in regards to Hebrew doctrine? Your brother needs intervention. Look out for a brother, man. Tag Nuwaupian. And people started tagging Nuwaupians. One brother, Shepsus Bes, excuse me. Gasamian's son of Bes, right? They tagged him. He came on and was like, yeah, these are my conditions. And I said, cool, these are my conditions. And we went back and forth. He's like, I'm prepared for this. Let's do it. And I'm like, all right, cool. You know what I'm saying? And, inbox him or whatever. And I thought he was going to be available, but He flaked. Last minute again. So here I am looking at y'all with nobody to join this panel to represent the Nuwaupian community. Now, I could just go in and just share information in regards to what the Nuwaupian Nation is, what they stand on. They got a website, you know, they got Facebook pages, Instagram pages, Twitter, they're everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Some of y'all that are joining here from Facebook was asking me, I don't even never heard of Nuwaupians. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. I know when I was initially in a Christian church, I didn't know anything about a Nuwaupian. If one of them would have approached me, I would have no clue what a Nuwaupian is. You know what I'm saying? I would have definitely be caught off guard. You know what I mean? It wasn't until I came into this in about 2012 is when a friend of mine, she put me onto it. The person who really helped wake me up to be conscious. You know, she helped to start me on this journey. You know what I'm saying? And y'all took it from there. You know what I'm saying? But that's when I found out who the Nuwaupians are, and I've been studying them since 2012. It's 2018, so about 6 years. I've been studying that material because that was one of the first materials she gave me to look at was Dr. Malachi Z. York's work. You know what I'm saying? Her and another individual that I know of as well. And then when I started to study them, I said, wow, it's interesting stuff. You know, I thought it was really like just mind blowing until I went back to go cross reference all of these claims that was being made. And I was like, wait a second, something's not right here. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, shout out to everybody that's in the building, man. Let me see who's here. Shout out to Aharwan Yasharala, Barzillah, Avshalom, Shamarya, Program 222, Bezaliel, Yisrael, Rabo 77 Craze, Virgil Johnson, Cheryl, Dimitri Elder, King Standard, Renee Futrell, On GP, Shalom, Sadaria Halliburton, King Standard, D Red, Isa Israel, the Black F1, Art Lindsay, Jeremy Harris, Chemo Ben Israel, Lorraine I Am, Indigenous Indigo. Peace, peace, family. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom to those of y'all out there who are Israelites who subscribe to the Sabbath. Peace to my family out there that are not Israelites that are watching this. You know what I mean? I normally don't do Islam or Hotep, but I'll say Islam or Hotep to the family out there that's watching as well, because, you know, shout out to my brother Kyle in the building, Jason Morrison, Katrio Ben Israel, Yesha Vision 360. And I realized that there's a lot of people that watch this channel. You know what I'm saying? All walks watch this channel. You know what I mean? Shakara God in the building, Christopher Copeland in the building, Hayil Ariel in the building. Peace, peace to all of y'all, man. Thank you for joining in, man. I mean, we may have a short session tonight. It's supposed to be a 2-hour session starting at midnight with a Nuwaupian from 12 to 2. We was going to have the discussion for an hour and a half and then open up the floor for the last 30 minutes for question and answer from you guys. But they flaked, man. They flaked. Extremely disappointed. Extremely. I wanted to have a real good show for y'all, man. I'm just extremely disappointed right now. So I'm gonna show y'all guys what the flyer looks like, so you can see the flyer. Man, it's really just disappointing, man. So those of you who are not on social media, let me show y'all what the flyer looks like so y'all can see it. All right, let me share my screen. Hold up. Let me show y'all. I don't know why it's not showing this image, man. Let me just show y'all this so y'all can see it. All right, this is it right here. Kingdom Harmony Ministry presents a discussion on Hebrew doctrine with the Nuwaupian. Is divine prospect food for the gods, or will scholarship prevail over dogma? See the dialogue live on YouTube channel Kingdom Harmony Ministry, Saturday, 09/8/18 at 12 a.m. Subscribe today. All right, you see me, Divine Prospect, on the left, and Kanum Hattab Abab on the right. All right, that was the flyer that went out on social media. Got 100+ shares. People really wanted to see the discussion. I was getting inboxes and everything. You know what I'm saying? People had questions they wanted to ask, all types of stuff. But I mean, unfortunately, they flaked. I mean, shout out to Still Rise in the building, Sarah in the building. Well, Isa, I use just Israelite. I just use just Israelite. I don't use Hebrew Israelite no more. I just say Israelite. So that's me. I mean, other people have their position on what they subscribe to. That's fine. But y'all pray for me. Definitely pray for me. You know, I was told that I could potentially be food for the gods. You know, I was definitely disturbed by that. Really concerned, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, it is what it is. It is definitely is what it is. It's kind of bright in here. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. I think this should be enough. All right. Okay. Let's see. I think that should be good. Yeah, that's good. Much better, actually. All right. So, family, this is just going to be an open dialogue, man. I mean, yeah, I am a bit tired, so I am. But as soon as this is over, trust me, I'm gonna unwind and get some sleep. But I definitely wanted to do this for y'all. Now that was the first brother I was supposed to dialogue with, but he couldn't do it. His elder couldn't do it. And the last guy, Shep Sess, he couldn't do it either. Sabes, he couldn't do it either. You know what I'm saying? So Jason Moore says, like, what does that mean, food for the gods? Yo, everybody, when I put that on a flyer, everybody was like, yo, what does that mean? Like, people were disturbed by that, man. Disturbed. I was disturbed by that. All right. Dimitri, I did speak on how what prayer is. It's on one of my live streams. I'm not sure which one it is. I didn't do a formal teaching on it. I did like way back in 2015. But if that's some content that you want, you know, let me know. Email me at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. Right. So I really wanted to really go over some information. Those of you who are here from social media, can you hit 1? If you hear from social media outside of YouTube, hit 1. All right. Those of you who are hearing all of this for the first time about this discussion, hit 2. So those of you who's tuning into YouTube for the first time and you're hearing about this the first time, whether you're a new subscriber, whether you're a returning subscriber, whether you're a regular viewer, and you don't know what is going on right now, hit 2. But if you hear from social media like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, hit 1. Because I need to see where y'all are coming from. So Virgil, hit 2. Christopher, hit 2. So they don't even know what's going on right now. Jason hit 2. He don't know what's going on right now. You're probably like, what is Divine talking about? Like most of you probably didn't even know that this discussion was going down. So I appreciate that, family. Sam Collins hit 2. You don't know what I'm talking about either. Tani Marie don't know what I'm talking about. So all right. So pretty much, matter of fact, let me show y'all. Let me show y'all what I'm talking about. So this is for the family out there. Aslam Mahdi Ra'ahubat. Ra'ahubat. That is a greeting in Nuwaupu. All right. And those of you who's interested in Nuwaupu language, I got the book for y'all. Let me show you the book. You know, y'all know I got the book on that. Yeah, let me show it to y'all real quick so you can see. It's actually the teacher's guide. I've had this for some time. Let me show it to y'all. And then we're going to get back into what started this discussion. I'm probably going to have to just delete this video, man. It's like embarrassing. It's embarrassing, man. All right, let me show y'all this book so you can see it. Hold on, let me bring it up. Let me bring it up. Right. Here it is right here. The Teacher's Guide to the Nuwaupian Language. All right. There's your boy right there, Dr. Malachi Z. York. And then we go into the lessons, the alphabet, reading, constructing words, the pronouns, past possessions, the part verb, the forms. Hold on, let me zoom in. It might be small. There you go. Tenses, constructing verbs, preposition, negative command, adverbs, adjectives, the colors, hobbies, exercises, breakfasts, lunch, toiletries. It's all in here. It's all in here. Right. We got all the information for the language. I know the alphabet. All right. And then you can just use the alphabet and draw it to reconstruct the greeting that my brother Aslan Mahdi just posted in there. So, you know, I always I try to come prepared. You know what I'm saying? I try to come prepared. In case we needed to get into the language too, as it pertains to Hebrew doctrine. All right. Shout out to Still Rise, Tyrese Jones. Yeah, well, Issa, a lot of the constructs for their language is derived from Semitic languages, right? You'll see that it's derived from a lot of Semitic languages. Okay. I appreciate that, Tyrese. Appreciate that, brother. So, if y'all know Nuwaupian, man, please send him this link. You know, share this link everywhere on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Share it everywhere. Tag a Nuwaupian. If you can get a Nuwaupian, I'll send him the link. He can jump in the chat and we can have a discussion. Still Rise, I'm sure this has something to do with aliens from their perspective. So it definitely has something to do with aliens from their perspective. You know what I mean? But let me go ahead and show y'all how all of this started. Okay, I definitely want to show you how all this started. Let me get to it on Facebook so y'all can see. All right, I want to show y'all how it started, how it escalated. All right, let me get it for y'all real quick. Let's see. Made a fly and everything, man. All right, I'm gonna start here with it. Let me zoom in. All right. Let me share my screen. Give me a second, fam. I want to see what y'all talking about. All right, let me show you what I'm talking about. I want to show you how this started. Let me share my screen. Give me a second. So apparently there was a post that I put up, and the brother Kanum jumped on the post and was making these comments that I'm about to show y'all, right? Let me zoom in some more. Oh, I look sleepy there, right? I look crazy there. All right, hold on. Let me, here it is. All right. So pretty much it was a post. He jumped on the post. All right. So after he jumped on a post, he tagged his elder and all of that. Let me show y'all real quick, right? So we started off here. You know, he said, see you're waking up out of this Hebrew spell. Because, family, the post that I shared the post with my brother Kayal, and he was making a public apology about, you know, subscribing to Judaism. And I said, Joe, you know, there's a lot of truth in what this brother's saying right now. My stance is the same. Because, you know, we don't practice Judaism. I don't practice Judaism, right? So I guess he was thinking I was meaning something else, like that I wasn't an Israelite no more, something along those lines. I'm thinking that's what he was thinking, right? He says, I see you waking up out of this Hebrew spell, and you are correct. If you didn't know, Zoroastrianism is the oldest religion. This religion started in Sumer under Abraham and them, and Abraham was from Ur of Chaldea. And if you get a proper Hebrew dictionary or very old one, you will see that the word Ur means fire or flames, and Chaldea means demons, flames of demons. That's what it really is. Okay, I was a little disturbed by that, but it's all good, right? Now, mind you, he came out left field, and the brother gave his post, and I welcome that. I welcome that's cool. So I said Zoroastrianism is the oldest religion. Any sources for this, bro? That was a mistake. It is one of the oldest, he says, right? He says, this is where your Hebrew doctrine is coming. Not to mention, it also have roots in Hinduism too, which is way older. Then he says, it's all worship of the Anunnaki Elohim, disagreeable beings from the Pleiad star constellation. It all started with those beings that came down and brought those religions, those anti-African extraterrestrial beings. Those beings landed in Mount Zion or Zuon, or which is called Sin, known as Nanar Sin, mentioned in Genesis 4:7, who is of Anunnaki Elohim. You are being set up to be food for the gods. And somebody actually like put a heart symbol on that. Like somebody was really concerned that I was being set up to be eaten by the gods, right? I said, my Hebrew doctrine is coming from Zoroastrianism. Interesting, especially when I've taught on this subject matter several times and showed the distinction between pre-exilic Israelite culture and Second Temple Judaism, which was influenced by Zoroastrianism. I'm not new to this, young grasshopper. I've never been fooled because I'm a hunter, right? That's what I said, right? So he says, that's great, Aki. Well, you need to explain to me why Elohim liked the smell of burnt flesh. Why did he accept a blood sacrifice over fresh veggies? Why he came down and eat raw flesh with Abraham, and explain Revelation 19:18 so that you may eat the flesh of kings, generals, and the mighty of horses and their riders, and the flesh of all people, free and slave, great and small. And then he gave me a source from this book. I said, if your source is going to be Dr. York material, my brother, this is going to be a painful discussion. He says, and I say, if you study academic material on Near Eastern cultures, then that question can be answered easily. You are confining discussion within a theological framework when it has a much broader spectrum implication than that. So I can start citing some professional references until you are able to discover the answer for yourself. I only ask if you choose to rebut or refute, please also cite professional academic sources. I'm going to start off with something elementary. So I started off with one book called Kingship and the Gods, a study of ancient Near East religion and the integration of society and nature. Excellent book, right? Excellent work. There was another one I want to subscribe to him, and I showed it on Facebook, and I'll probably show y'all here. Then he said, that's not proper argument. As the master teacher said, don't believe me, check it out. And yes, Dr. Malachi Z. York, in the 55 scrolls of his that I do have, always says, don't believe me. Or he'll say, see, y'all didn't believe me. And here it is. See, I tell you all the time, don't believe me, study for yourself. He says, all he is saying is this book can be found and you can find many sources in the books written by York. What makes this white European Henry Frankfurt information correct when we all know this race of people can't be trusted? That's what he says, right? I said, I have those books you shared, and it's lacking source citations. And it's lacking source citations for a lot of Pop's claims. I have many of his books that I've read several times over, but his information cannot be vetted because he is not citing most of his a lot of his sources. What I meant to say, not any. He is not citing a lot of his sources. That's poor scholarship, no matter how brilliant the information. Then I said, but our race can be trusted when we use their information and present it as our own. It's really interesting. I said, I'm not dealing with this in a theological matter. If you reduce it to that, then it will result in an argument ad infinitum. That means it'll keep going on and on and on and on, right? Then he says, well, I got an elder that could deal with this. I said, who is this elder? And I doubt someone can answer all my questions, because apparently he said this elder can answer all my questions. I'm like, man, this guy must be a god, right? Then he told me what the elder's name is, Mahatewi Emre, right? That was the elder that was supposed to also have a discussion with me. He flaked too, right? I said, okay, sure, he can come on one day. Yeah, there's no problem. I have no issues with that. All right. And that's what started everything, right? So the brother hit me up. He told me that he couldn't do it. Well, first I went live because I told him in advance, over 24 hours in advance, hey, I want to have a preliminary discussion with you on Facebook Live leading up until Saturday midnight. I said, please keep your word. Please don't flake. Yes, I'll be there. I'll do it, blah, blah, blah. And then we get to the time. He's over here, made a post. Let me show you the post he made. Let me show you the post. Y'all can understand my frustration, right? I'm going to show you the post he made. So after all of that, right, I made the flyer that I showed y'all earlier. Then he made this post the day of. Yesterday we're talking about, right? Well, not yesterday. Yesterday was Friday, Thursday, right? Let me show you. After I made the flyer, after I then posted it all over social media, I'll go over those 4 points with you guys on how to filter through pseudo information. I'll go over that with y'all. I touched on it a little bit on Thursday. But anyway, let me go ahead and show y'all this post. All right. So then he makes this post and tags me in it. Let me show y'all. He says, ready? And he tags me. Look what he has. He has Dr. Malachi York. I don't know if that was supposed to intimidate me or I don't know. I was a little concerned. It was like, okay, I got you. And I said, good luck. You know what I'm saying? Then I even shared that, right? Sorry for those of you who already know about it and a bit redundant. I apologize. I'm just trying to get everybody up to speed. So just bear with me. Bear with me. All right. Hold on. All right. So then I shared his post and I added some information, right? Telling people it's going to be a preliminary discussion tonight, blah, 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 this, and that, right? The brother was not there for the discussion. He flaked on me. So yesterday came, Friday came. I did the video. The brother didn't show up to the preliminary. Then Friday came and I made this post, man. I was really disturbed, man. I said, Kanum, why the no-show? Are you going to leave me out here to be the next entree for the Anunnaki Elohim? SMH. If you change your mind, you could have let me know in advance. I'm extremely disappointed. I apologize to everyone who was anticipating this dialogue. If you know anyone who's in Nuwaupian and would like to continue this dialogue with me, please tag them below. Right? That's what I said. And then I made a post today. Friday. I was really desperate to get some. I'm like, yo, this is crazy, man. I had a discussion format and everything's lined up for y'all, man. So let me show you, right? So then I make a post saying, if any Nuwaubians are brave enough to have a discussion tonight regarding their perspective on Hebrew doctrine, please comment below or inbox. Shalom. So, people commenting, people are tagging people and everything, right? So one brave soul was like, sure. So I'm going to show you guys this so you can see. I want to show you guys this. Hold on. Let me get to this. I'm going to show you guys this. So he says, sure, under these conditions, you can read, write, and speak Hebrew, Aramaic fluently. Is he saying Hebrew and Aramaic, or is he equating Hebrew with Aramaic? I don't know, but I wanted to find that out. He says, you have at least 10 years of study in Hebrewism. I don't know what Hebrewism is, but okay, whatever that is. No profanity and temper tantrum. Family, when do y'all know me to curse and throw a temper tantrum in any discussion on my channel? Or in person, for that matter, if y'all have been following me for years on Facebook. Keep all your groupies in check. Now, I felt that was disrespectful and insulting because the people that support me are not groupies. Okay, these are people who support the information, right? And take the tools from it to build something for their own. So anytime somebody says fans or groupies, the people that support me, I get insulted on their behalf, and it's a disrespect. I said condition 3 and 4 were never an issue on my platform. If you're familiar with it, I think you should check it out before we have a discussion. Check it out here. I will also tag you in a live video I did yesterday, which I did. For number one, I'm an intermediate with the strength in biblical Hebrew analysis and literacy. For two, I have 5 years in. I'm more than qualified to represent my community. If you doubt this, ask around. I have conditions for you also. You must be an official representative of the Nuwaupian nation and not a fringe subscriber. You must defend Malachi Z. York's material on Hebrew doctrine and not stray into your own understanding. You must not use a specific language, make ad hominem attacks, and use the appropriate academic methodology to convey your conclusions. Also, don't back out once you agree. Deal. Now, mind you, he agreed. Same thing I said to Kanun. I'm sure you're not aware of my work or position. Otherwise, you would have had different conditions, right? He says, he's responding to my question number one. He said, what is an official representative of the Nuwaupian nation to you? Because you would be speaking about mainly women in his office in Brooklyn, New York. Two, there are many sects and organizations of Nuwaupians worldwide, and not all of them are governed by Dr. Malachi Z. York. He says, all Nuwaupians have the duty and rights to defend Wu Nawap. And I wanted him to lay that foundation out. He says, I am a student teacher and study the many schools and doctrines plus Semitic languages of Dr. Malachi Z. York since 1989. Man, I was a young child at that time. He says, you are facing at least 29 years of experience here, LMBO. All the conditions above I mentioned above wasn't really being serious. So he said, I was just asking you questions, just playing around, just poking at you. He said, all the conditions above, he wasn't being serious. I don't care how you come, because I know how to deal with the situation at hand. I am in control of self. Let's go. So that's a declaration of engagement to me. The rules of engagement means if somebody's just making a declaration like to engage you, let's go. I'm like, oh, all right, that's what I'm talking about. And Ma'arifa al-Jabari, he co-signed this dude, right? He's like, yo, that's like blood to me, man. He's the truth. And I'm like, yo, I got an OG in this. All right, let's do it. You understand what I'm saying? So, him and Kansu going back and forth. You know what I mean? I say, he says, Ron, I see all this is just a publicity stunt and seeking attention, not family. I have a platform, right? There's no need for me to do publicity stunts, no need for me to seek attention. My objective is to restore culture, establish communities, implement autonomy. That's the three major tenets of Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. I do work on camera, off camera, right? Those of you who've been following my work since 2014, y'all are familiar with this, but he is not. So I don't know what he thought he was getting into. Maybe he thought I was baiting him. No. Somebody initiated it with me. I didn't initiate it with them. I just wanted somebody to step in the shoes of the person that initiated with me, because all Nuwaupians should stick together. I says, no, not at all. I want to have a serious discussion. I commented on the show primary research of the curriculum of the Nuwaupian pedagogy. I'm sure you won't have that time to do that, but if you can, that would help. I appreciate you accepting the discussion. Please don't renege because of the open forum comments of others. Consul is his own man and can handle himself. I would love to see you chat with him in a follow-up discussion piece. He says, what are we doing here then? LOL. Is this just your back door to the charlatans and imps? No posted, no links to your comments or discussion on another forum, but you challenge the Nuwaupians here. I get it. Anytime you're serious and have a real topic, I'll be waiting. I was challenged by Nuwaupians and they flaked. So I was asking for someone to suggest a reliable Nuwaupian who can have a dialogue concerning Hebrew doctrine. If you are qualified, and I put if you were qualified, meant if you are qualified, which are 29 years of experience, then let's chat tonight. So I am serious. Are you down? Yes or no, my brother? That's all I wanted to know from him. This was the flyer posted for almost a week. And if he would have took the time and scrolled through my timeline, like I don't know who this brother is, but I clicked on him, checked out his profile, and I scrolled through the last 2 weeks so I can get an idea of where this brother's coming from. I would think he would have took the time out to do the same thing, and he didn't. If he did, he would have saw this flyer posted at least 5 times, right? I showed the flyer. I said I will send you to get Google Hangouts link like around midnight when the discussion begins so we can speak. It's posted on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc., 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 etc. So I put the link up again, right? Then I inboxed the brother several times from then to now. Brother is a no-show, no answer, no response. What am I supposed to do, family? Got almost 100 people up in here, and no Nuwaupians. Yeah, I see that somebody is trolling. Doctrine enforcer, I'm gonna ask you to please stop trolling. At least if you're gonna to troll based on the subject matter. You're not even trolling based on the subject matter. All right. So keep trolling. We're gonna put you on timeout. All right. Anyway, shout out to Sam Bone in the building. Doctrine enforcer, like I said, chill. Dashboy 007. Kwaku Danielle in the building. Big Boo in the building. I think I covered all y'all. Love Yaz Colas in the building. Semak in the building. One Mind, One Body. Yaz Spirit. L Harris. Kelly Rivers. Family. If y'all know Nuwaupian, share this with them, please. Let's get a Nuwaupian up in here. If it's 3, 4, 5, 6 of them that want to join, they can join in. I have no problem with that. So I mean, I'm just really waiting, man. Just really waiting. So Doctrine Enforcer said, "Shut your mouth, crybaby." I don't know who he's talking to, but you're done. All right, you're done. We don't tolerate that here. All right. Shout out to El Hakim Ben Yisrael in the building. Sign in the Times. Peace. The Great Awakening. So family, y'all. There's almost 100 of y'all in here. There's no Nuwaupians, man. Tag Nuwaupians. Share this everywhere. Let's get a Nuwaupian in here in the next 30 minutes before I close the show, man. Seriously. If any of y'all want to join in the conversation, man, we could talk about Nuwaupians or whatever, man. Let me yes. Bezalel Yisrael. Judaism is juxtaposed against pre-exilic Israelite culture. Again, I've done several videos on this already. If you go back and check out my videos, you'll see what I showed a distinction between Judaism, which is a religion of the Yahudim, post-exile, and the pre-exilic element was mostly driven by the northern tribes in conjunction with the southern tribes when they was united. So pre-exilic, from my perspective, is from their time in Kemet or Misraim to their exodus all the way to 722 BCE for the northern tribes, and some 722 all the way to about 587, 586 BCE for the southern tribes when they were taken out by the Babylonians during that period of time of reconstructing it, right? Navia Yashael, shout out to you, sis. Yasha Ben Yisrael. I appreciate that, family, man. Yes, Tyrese, I did watch that. It was that is extremely lengthy, so it took me a couple of days to get through it. But yes, I did watch it. Shout out to Ben BZ in the building. So, family, it's almost 100 of y'all. Share this video everywhere, man. Let's tag a Nuwaupian. Divine needs intervention. I'm not trying to be on the banquet table for these gods, man. Serious, yo. Yehoshua Shema, shout out to you, Terrell Robinson. He said, "What is a Nuwaupian?" I wanted them to come on here and they can explain it for themselves. I don't want nobody, crying foul and I'm drawing a straw man. I wanted them to actually explain for themselves. But shout out to L Harris in the building, man. Yeah, Brother Polite used to be a Nuwaupian. So a lot of if you go back and watch a lot of the early Polite videos, like from 2012, 2010, where he was a Nuwaupian, then you'll know what the Nuwaupians teach. All right. And I think he was one of the best Nuwaupians, man, information-wise, what I'm saying, talking-wise, etc. And y'all know I had sit-downs with Polite and everything like that. Man, yeah, this is really disappointing, man. Share this video everywhere, man. Let's get a Nuwaupian in here, man. Let's get a Nuwaupian in here. I'm gonna put the link in the chat, man. If anybody want to join in, feel free to join in. Let's chat, man. Let's talk until somebody brings a Nuwaupian in here, man. But try to share this. No Nuwaupian want to have this discussion, man. This should be second nature. It should be instinctive. Thursday, when I had the preliminary discussion by myself, it was a monologue because I got stood up. I was going over the importance of this discussion. I realized that a lot of my, and mind you, I got several Nuwaupian associates and friends that I'm cool with. So this is in no way a disrespect to the Nuwaupian movement at all. Okay, this is simply dealing with the Nuwaupians' perspective on what they call Hebrew doctrine. I need more understanding because somebody told me that I could be food for the gods. I'm gonna show you these clay tablets that gave me nightmares when somebody said that to me. I've never heard nobody say that to me before. Like, you know, sometimes like when somebody will say something to you, be like, oh, like, damn, I never thought about that before. Like, whoa, serious. That's mad disrespectful. So anyway, the reason why I'm saying that this discussion is important because those of you who've seen the flyer, it says, is divine prospect food for the gods, or will scholarship prevail over dogma? The problem is a lot of Nuwaupians mostly interface with Israelites who do not take the academic route, and don't know how to give an objective perspective on what their subscription is, right? Like I can do. So I can go into the cultural aspect and deal with my people, and I can step outside of that and deal with the culture from an objective perspective and analyze it, right? Truncate or parse out the parts that are fluff and get right to the core of it and show you the underlying foundation in which it's built upon. There's a book that I showed y'all, well, those of you who are coming from Facebook, called Ancient Israel. Let me show you the book in case y'all are interested in the book. Let me show you the book. It is right here. I'll show it to y'all. And I wanted to read from it. But I'm gonna save it till we have the discussion. Unless y'all want to get it, which y'all can do, you can download it and read it for yourselves. But I wanna share something with y'all, because the way that I approach my studies is from an interdisciplinary perspective. I deal with the material and non-material cultural aspects of a society, right? And these things are extremely important. All of it falls under the heading of anthropology. And when it comes to objectively looking at the culture, the text is relegated to literature. And therefore, they are the literary devices that are utilized in order to tell the narrative. So I remove myself out of the theological framework of the text, and I'm able to objectively analyze the culture, not just from the textual aspect, right, but from a linguistic aspect as far as the language, right, that's in the text, comparative cultures, history, archaeology, and other elements of anthropology, right? And this is when I was explaining in the video, I'm like, listen, before we can even get into the theological implications of the text that is telling a narrative to a particular audience, we got to look at the things that cause this text to be written, right? To be written down, right? Or this oral history to be written down. And what I was trying to explain was that you got to look at several things: the migration patterns of these people. You got to look at the ethnogenesis of these people. How did they come out to become a distinct ethnic group on their own? You got to look at the climate. Okay, you got to look at the environment. You got to look at their proximity to a river or a sea or a body of water. Okay, and how does that impact them? You got to look at their diet. You got to look at the animals in the environment. You got to see, hey, if they're looking up in the sky, the constellation that they see in the sky, is it going to be from the southern hemisphere? Is it going to be from the northern hemisphere? You got to look at the cloud coverage. You got to look at the geography of where they're located, the topography. You got to look at social constraints, things that they were limited to and couldn't do. You got to look at droughts that happen in that community. You got to look at the values of the people in that community based on these environmental factors. You got to look at the acculturation that takes place, the cultural diffusion that takes place, and over time, the enculturation that takes place of these people. You got to be able to look at the DNA and trace the DNA from the parent haplogroup to the child haplogroup. You got to look at the other ideologies that are circulating in the area. You got to look at the political stresses. You got to examine all of these things. If you're not looking at these things, natural disasters, you are not even going to be able to know anything about that damn text. That text don't mean nothing if you don't understand all of these things. Social structure, right? Like before, when I bring up certain terms that I want people to be familiar with, like egalitarianism. If you don't know what egalitarianism is and what inspired egalitarianism, the Torah. But before the Torah was even written, this was part of the culture, right? This was in the social memory of the people. So you got to deal with psychology. How did the people maintain the oral history by means of social memory? That means it required 2 or 3 witnesses to recall things such as an accusation or allegation, right? In order for a crime to be tried, in order for a word to be true, because of things back then. They didn't have newspapers like we do, right? They had scrolls that was written on parchment. They had astrakhan that they wrote letters and stuff on, but they did not have newspapers like us. They did not have a radio like we do. They didn't have TV. They didn't have the internet. How long did it take for them to get a message from one part of the geographic location to another part of the geographic location? What were the boundaries of the separate tribes that live in certain areas? Who manned those boundaries, right? The certain regions of which, and what was more important to somebody in an arid place, right, or on the coastal plains as opposed to somebody in the Central Hill countryside? Were they pastoralists in that area? Were these people fishermen in that area? You got to look at these things, family, before we can even talk about a text. Okay. All right. Okay. This is, I'm just saying, family. I'm just saying. I was going to go through all of that first before we even get into a text, man. Like, if you don't study that, it's going to be very difficult. Now, you can extract some of that from the text. The text does give you a good portion of that, but you have to look at it objectively. See, when I read the text, I read it for culture. And then I use all the other stuff of the narrative to teach, to edify, to encourage, to empower, to equip. But for myself, I seek the culture, because in the culture is a time capsule that has been perfectly preserved for our generation. That when we extract the contents from it and we see what the ancestors were dealing with and what they left behind to remind us, Zakar, to remember where we need to go, where we came from. I'm telling you, family, this takes you in strict alignment with Yah and brings you to the destination that he wants you today. And you can extract those principles, and then you can look in a contemporary framework and evolve the culture, bring it up to date, so that way none of the base principles are lost. You're doing modern alchemy. You're taking the contemporary environment, the social constraints, the social restraints, the social ills, and you're taking something from the past, right, that the ancestors left, and you're merging them together because you're taking two base metals and you're creating gold out of it, family. That's what I do. I put this stuff in a lab so I can give you guys back your culture. I can help to restore this and bring more purpose in what we do as a community. Okay. All right. So let me show y'all this book real quick so y'all can see what I'm talking about. So great read, man. Excellent book. All right, let me bring up. Oh, first let me show you the book. Hold on. Let me show you the book first. And then I'm gonna show you the 4 ways that you guys can decipher or filter through pseudo information. You hold anybody that has pseudo information to these 4 things, and you pretty much will get them every time. So let me show you this book first, right? I went over the debate. Look, I went over argumentation and debate, and I went over a whole bunch of terms: consistency, internal, external consistency, what a premise is, what a proposition is, what the evaluation of data is, what is the affirmative position, what is the negative position. We went over all of this stuff. What is considered data? What is considered evidence? These terms has a requirement that must be met in order for it to be validated or verified. All right, here it is. It's called Ancient Israel, What Do We Know and How Do We Know It by Lester L. Grab. It's an excellent book. Excellent book, man. I recommend all of you out there to go grab this book. All right. So let me zoom in real quick. Hold on. Let me zoom in. I want to show y'all. I'm going to show y'all something in this book, right? So let's get through this. Scroll to this. So all this, it's in the introduction, right? Look at this. Please pay attention. Theories derived from the social sciences are simply models to be tested against biblical and other data, not conclusions to be imposed on the sources. They are simply analogies based on one or more cultures. They are not facts. They can be then be taken as givens by biblical scholars, but are interpretations to be critically examined against the data and then modified or discarded when necessary. The function of sociological theories is to interrogate the textual of the data. The texts themselves may be read uncritically as if they provided immediate access to the ancient society. It is easy to forget that the biblical text cannot be treated like anthropological reports because you have to relegate it to literature in order for people to get the true core context of a discussion as it pertains to restoring a cultural worldview. A related danger is to overinterpret, to find a lot more data in a passage than is warranted because of applying the sociological theory. Cross-cultural comparisons allows us to ask questions, to look at familiar data in a new light, to think in new directions. One of the most problematic tendencies in scholarship is that of reading modern ethical and theological concerns into the data. This is what my opponents will be doing. This is what I will be stepping out away from, and they will be cornering themselves in doing just that. It says, biblical scholars are in the habit of making statements about the text based on theological bias and calling it sociological analysis. What should be sociological description becomes, in fact, an ideological value judgment. Too often, sociological theory is simply a vehicle to import preconceived views about the biblical text. The city urban is bad. The country rule is good. The rich ruling class is bad. The poor are good. The Canaanite city-states are bad. The refugee, slave, peasant, proto-Israelite, highland settler is good. The monarchy, social status, the economic situation, class division, urbanism, and the like are all presented from the point of view of what a modern liberal middle-class biblical scholar with a social conscience would consider acceptable. Family, this speaks. All right, let's read this here. All historical work requires sources, by which is meant the source of data or information. Thus, source includes not just literature or inscriptions, but archaeology, surveys, demographic studies, and so on. Any ancient history should depend as far as possible on primary sources, the principle already laid down by von Rank. This means that artifactual evidence, archaeology, and material culture, remember I did a video or live stream where I talked about material culture and non-material culture, is extremely important. In contrast to the old way of beginning with the text, historical reconstruction should start with the longue durée, geology, climate, environment, and then move on to inscriptions and archaeology. These furnish information not found in text and also provide an objectivity not possessed by text because they provide actual realia from the past. The importance of archaeology cannot therefore be overestimated. Family, this is an interdisciplinary study. If you want to restore this culture, if you want to reconstruct the past, this is what I've been doing for years until the point where I'm at now. There's still more that I want to share with you guys, but I'm walking y'all along. I'm getting y'all there, getting y'all familiar with terms like ancient pre-Israelite culture, getting you in touch with things like the sacerdotal methodological model. You know what I'm saying? Getting you familiar with terms like an astrakhan. What is an astrakhan, right? Getting you familiar with all of these terms, the difference between culture and religion and Second Temple Judaism. And I'm trying to show y'all something, family, because I'm not taking the stance simply from the text itself. If you do that, you will have presuppositions when looking at the archaeological record. You cannot do that. You cannot do that, family. Let me read this to you right here. The use of archaeology for historical reconstruction is as complicated as the use of the text. The material data have to be interpreted just as much as textual data. Artifacts by themselves are mute. They speak only when interrogated and given a context by the archaeologist and the historian. Much depends on the skill and technical understanding of the excavators and the careful recording of the archaeological data. As David Ushishkin, forthcoming A, has put, the need for objectivity in archaeological research must be emphasized. Firstly, most data can usually be interpreted in more than one way. This or that wall can be assigned to the upper level, but it may also be assigned to the lower. Or this and that storage jar can be assigned to a floor, but also to a pit dug from above, etc., etc. Right, hold on, let me go here. The past 4 decades have seen significant changes in archaeological theory and method, some of which has had an impact on the archaeology of Palestine. This can only briefly be surveyed here. It is probably fair to say that the biblical archaeology mode of operation has dominated the archaeology of Palestine up to the death of Albright, who was its foremost practitioner. All right, hold on. Let's get past that. This goes into the methodology between biblical archaeology then and Palestinian archaeology now. It focuses on contextual concerns, including the natural environment, but also the socio-cultural environment. All social activity, including doing archaeology, has to do with the meaning and interpretation, make sense of things. Hence, the designation interpretative archaeology. The person and work of the interpreter is explicitly recognized. Archaeology works in the present, constructing knowledge, narratives, and the like from the remains of the past. It reads material culture like a text. There's no final definitive account of the past. Archaeology is a continuing process. Interpretations of society are less concerned with the causes than making sense of things, etc., etc., etc. All right, hold on. Then we get into terminology of the archaeological period, such as early Bronze Age, middle Bronze Age. How was that defined? The time frame in which we put it. Iron Age 1, Iron Age 2A, 2B, 2C. I've mentioned this in a lot of my lectures in the past. So this is the type of material that I personally would like to go through if we're going to have this type of discussion. Let me show y'all another book, because apparently they asking me, what about human sacrifice? And what about this? Family, y'all know, those of you who've watched this channel, I did a lecture called Capital Punishment, Human Sacrifice for the Atonement of Sin in the Bible. If y'all have not seen that, go back and watch that. I've dealt with the subject as far as human sacrifice, right? I've dealt with that, right? I talked about retainer sacrifice. I explained all of these things to y'all. But here's a good read for y'all, right? If y'all want to really understand about sacrifice and the what we call the material, cultural aspect of sacrifice by surveying the archaeological record, I'm going to give y'all a good work on that, right? Give me a second. Let me bring it up for y'all real quick. Where'd I put this article at? I'm gonna put this on the screen while I find it so y'all can take a look at this. Let me show you this on my screen. Hold on. Give me a second to look for this. I want y'all to take a look at the screen while I look for this. Take a look at this, family, all right? While I look for this. Where is this document at? May have to look it up again. Ah, here it is. I got it. All right, I found it. Here it is, family. It's called Sacred Killing. All right. The archaeology of sacrifice in the ancient Near East. I wanted to go over some material on this too, but as you can see, here's the various contributors. to this material. All right. And again, if you're not studying this, then I don't even know why we're going to have a discussion about something that's in a text if you don't even understand these basic concepts. All right. So he goes over this as well. Although there's much debate, let me zoom in real quick so y'all can see. My apologies. Let me zoom in. Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. All right. This is going over it. I want to scroll through this. I want to go to a workable definition of sacrifice, as with other broad concepts such as ritual, can be difficult to achieve. And again, this is how you know this is an academic work, because they have source citations referring to other scholarly work and building off on it and giving you the objective perspective in regards to the subject matter about being entirely definitive. Proposed that sacrifice entails the killing of a living thing, the offering of its life or life energy to entities in the supernatural world, and the acquisition of benefit to the sacrificer through the consumption of some part of the offering. Eliminating the activity of consumption from this definition, Campbell defines sacrifice as ritualized action involving destruction and offering to supernatural forces. This sort of definition distinguishes animal sacrifice from other types of animal slaughter and differentiates human sacrifice for other ritualized killings, such as the execution of criminals or ritualized warfare. All right. It may be that we must be content to live with these inconsistencies, blah, blah, but that's not what I want. In this volume, we will consider both human and animal sacrifice. One might object that animal sacrifice is much more common than human sacrifice, a bizarre abnormality, blah, blah, this, and that. Numerous explanations have been advanced for why people sacrifice, including several global or universal theories. Although such general theories are good to think, more recent scholarship has tended to doubt that they can provide fully satisfying explanations because they fail to acknowledge the diverse historical and social peculiarities of each case and a great variability in the types and meanings of sacrifice. Perhaps the most commonly cited purpose of sacrifice is to present a gift to deities or supernatural entities. Indeed, the word sacrifice, as used in modern European languages, usually entails the idea of giving something that is valuable to the donor, if not the receiver. Frequently, the sacrificial gift is understood as nourishment for the gods, who are dependent on humans for their food. Mesopotamian myth, for example, explained that humanity was explicitly created to supply food for the gods, freeing them from arduous labor. In ancient Mesoamerica, sacrifice of human blood and human hearts were understood to furnish the divine world with crucial nourishment. And giving up something of value, the sacrificer also indicates the extent of his or her devotion and an act of self-denial or abnegation. In any sacrifice, there is an act of abnegation, since the sacrificer deprives himself and gives. The sacrificer gives up something of himself, but not himself proper. But the gift, as is often the case, comes with the expectation of a favored return, as encapsulated in the Latin phrase do ut des. I give in order that you may give. The divine world is expected to provide benefits in return for the receipt of its gift. Such benefits may be conjunctive, allowing humans to attain closer proximity to the supernatural world. Another reason why people in ancient times will go to mountain peaks, because they believe this is where the gods resided. They wanted to be closer to the gods. Okay. We also see this in the scriptures. Or they may be disjunctive, terminating unwanted contact with the supernatural, e.g., to avoid the effects of divine anger and resultant misfortune. In their classic essay on sacrifice, Henry Hubert and Marcel Mauss de-emphasize gifting and instead focus on sacrifice as an opportunity for communication and communion with the divine. Family, if you're not reading the corpus of the work on this subject matter, why are we even having a debate on this or a discussion on this or anything? You have not surveyed all of the academic work on this subject matter, and you want to ask me from a theological perspective, from the text itself, why is the God eating flesh? Why is he commanding the killing of other people? Why this and why that? Before we get into the text, we got to work up a foundation first, and then we can get into the text. And once you see the foundation, then you understand why the house is standing as still as it is, why the structure is the way that it is. You got to get to the foundation first. And I went over some of that with y'all already. In this scenario, the victim is consecrated, made sacred, to serve as a mode of communication between the sacrificer and the deity. You know that word berit in Hebrew? That, when it talks about a covenant, we talk about a covenant, that is when you take a sacrifice, you split it in half, and you pass through it. That is how you come into covenant with the deity. All of this stuff is what Near Eastern cultures have been doing for a long time. And it didn't just start when the commencement of writing began. It was in the Mesolithic period, the Paleolithic period. It was way before writing even began that we see traces of this occurring. But if you are not familiar with this subject matter, why are we even having this discussion? You're going to ask me a question and think I'm just going to answer you from a theological perspective? No, we're going to go through the full survey, and we're going to dive into the entire spectrum of that subject matter. Rowan Robertson also understood sacrifice to be an opportunity for humans to connect with the divine world, particularly through the consumption of the sacred meal that often followed the killing of a sacrificed animal. Whether the sacrifice involved the presentation of a gift or communion with supernatural forces, we are still faced with the fundamental question: why do such actions require killing? Why not perform a creative act as opposed to a destructive one? As Burkett notes, this question has been pondered on at least from the time of Hesiod. Why must we kill the animals in order to turn them over to the gods, the lords of life? According to Rene Girard, who holds that violence is the heart and secret soul of the sacred, the sacrificial victim serves as a focus for the violent inclinations of the society. The ritualized killing of a victim, sanctioned by the supernatural world, protects the rest of the community from its members' incipient tendency towards violence. In this scenario, the victim must be similar enough to the other members of the society to serve as an appropriate target, but must be marginal enough that the killing does not engender actions of revenge. While it is unlikely that Girard's approach will explain the greater diversity and historical specificities, of the different manifestations of sacrifice, Girard provides one avenue to contemplating the centrality of violence in ritual. Some of the material that I shared in that lecture, Capital Punishment, Human Sacrifice for the Atonement of Sin in the Bible, it also builds off of this. Let me stop right there. Let me stop right there before I get too deep. Let me stop right there. Hopefully I didn't lose anybody. If y'all are following me, if y'all still follow me, hit one. Hit one if y'all still follow me. All right? Hit one if y'all still follow me. Hit one so I know y'all are still there, man. Shout out to new channel in the building. Adanya Haor. Talk to me. I want to make sure I catch everybody. B.A. Abad Shamar. Foolish World 75. Foolish World 75 said, question, how do I know when to acknowledge the high holy days? I did a whole series on this called Cultural Liberation. Go back and check that on my channel. Also have videos where I deal with the actual sacerdotal menological model, or the calendar that you can utilize in order to determine when the quote-unquote high holy days are. Somebody can definitely share that in the chat if they don't mind. Anybody can share those videos in the chat if they don't mind. So let me move on to another point that I want to make. All right, I appreciate that, family. All right. So again, I'm sure that most Nuwaupians are not prepared mentally to have this type of discussion, because if somebody says that they are Israelite or Hebrew Israelite or Black Hebrew Israelite, they're only going to deal with a theological presentation of what they hold to be true. And what one of the motives of Malachi York is to get his people out of the religious mind frame. But how he performed it in his intentions, was somewhat skewered. Okay. And this is what I wanted to go over, was how they're cross-examining this Hebrew doctrine. And me actually explaining it before we even get to the text from the material cultural perspective, and then work our way to the non-material. All right. So I'm just looking at what you got on there too. All right, so let me move forward to another point. Let me show y'all some of Dr. Malachi York's work. And again, like I said, I've read about 55 of these scrolls. I've watched at least 25 of his lectures. The videos that I either found myself or Nuwaupian was kind enough to give to me, DVDs, and online as well. I have the newsletter that he put out. I got the holy tablets. I got all of that. I've read all of this stuff. All the material that I have with Dr. Malachi York, I've read it. I've watched it. I understand his perspective. The issue I have is when it comes to him dealing with what's called the Hebrew Doctrine, right? I realize that in a lot of the pamphlets here that I read, he doesn't deal with he doesn't deal with grammar. He deals with, like, for example, when people who study and they only use the Strong's Concordance, because the Strong's Concordance is key to certain words in an English translation, and when they click on the Strong's Concordance, it gives them the shoresh, or the root word, but it doesn't give you the word as it's modified to fit in the grammatical structure of the sentence. So an example of that is when he talks about Hanok walking with Elohim. And he says, look, you see, the text says he's walking with Elohim. The word is halak there. Halak has a wide range of implications, right? But in his mind, he's using the literal definition. He's not even looking at the verb stem to see if that affects it in any way, shape, or form. And then he says, you see, right there, he walked. That means those Elohim were real beings. They were extraterrestrials. They were the Nibiru, also known as the Elohim, from the planet Nibiru, from the Pleiades constellation. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Then I go back and actually read it in Hebrew, and I see that word for halak. That word, we have what's called a conjunctive wav, a conservative wav. And we also have what's called a verb stem that's called the hitpayel, which is the reflective verb stem. This is the subject acting on itself in a reflective sense, which means that literal walking was not done. And we have the direct object marker there, it, because in Hebrew you have verb, subject, object. Then you have the direct object marker, direct object marker from the action of the subject themselves, the direct object marker, and then you have the accusative object. And I want to know, how does he account for the verb stem in the hitpayel? And how do you account for the direct object marker? How do these things impact the interpretation of what you just gave us? This happens in a lot of the passages that he cites from the Bible. He gives only the root words. He never gives how those root words are being utilized within the syntactical, morphological, it's syntactical, morphological presence within the sentence structure. He's not accounting for any of that. Which goes to show me that you're not even interpreting or translating this appropriately. You're reading it with an agenda. Use the data that's there. Explain the data that's there. Getting the root is just one thing. Got to know the grammar. Got to know the suffix. Got to know the prefix. You got to know the infix. You got to know how words impact each other. All of this is important when learning biblical Hebrew. So I read a lot of this material and I've seen a lot of issues when it came to that. But let me show you some of this information. I want to show you some of this information. And then I'm gonna open it up to questions, and then I'm going home, man. I'm really disappointed. No Nuwaupians joined in on the conversation. Nobody hit me up on Facebook. Nobody came in here on the chat. This is really disheartening, man. Extremely disheartening. All right, so let me show y'all this. Let me bring it up. I got a whole bunch of scrolls, but we're gonna deal with a particular scroll that I referenced yesterday. So those of you, this might be a bit redundant. I apologize for that. But this is for those of you who were not tuned into Facebook Live when I went in. Let me pull it up right here. All right, we'll go do a couple of these pages. We're gonna start first with page 74. Go to page 74. The reason why I'm bringing up page 74, because he says everybody knows that there is some craft or city that is somewhere out there. Wait, hold on. This is so you know what he's translating. Look at this. Sun Magazine, a tabloid, is a primary reference for aliens. Okay. That's really interesting. But anyway, let's keep it moving. Uses another Sun Magazine here. So anyway, he references Zacharias Sitchin as one of his sources. Zacharias Sitchin is not credentialed. Okay, I'm gonna go over with you guys the crap test. Right, this is, like I said, I'm gonna show you guys how to filter through pseudo information. Going through the crap test to evaluate sources, looking for methodology, consistency in argumentation, and in the sources and data that is utilized for argumentation, and logical fallacies. All right, the crap test, evaluating the sources. How to evaluate the sources? Somebody come and they say something to you, you got to run the crap test on them, because they can actually be trying to give you crap. All right, you have to find out what is your methodology and approach. How are you approaching this? Do it inductive, deductive? What is your research methodology? Are you using qualitative data, quantitative data, et cetera, et cetera? You got to know what the methodology is that they're using to approach this in order to establish the epistemology for us to know how do you know what you know. Then we got to go through crap tests, evaluating sources, methodology. We got to go through their I just forgot what I was saying. Methodology, logical fallacies. Most people commit logical fallacies. The minimal amount of logical fallacies you commit, the better your argumentation. It must be structured. It must be straightforward, and it must actually stay focused on what the subject matter is at hand. But a lot of people commit logical fallacies. One great logical fallacy, phylum group, if we're going to look at it as such, that people fall into is called red herrings. And this is to divert your attention from the subject matter at hand to something else, because they either have a weak argument, they're ignorant of the information, and or they are just caught unawares. This is a sleight of hand. This is done a lot of times. Okay, this is what charlatans do. All right. So once you're able to understand what logical fallacies are, how to identify them, call them out on their logical fallacies every time they commit it. The methodology, hold them to a methodology, have them put their methodology out there and have them hold to it. They must outline an academic methodological approach to their studies and the information in which they're presenting to you, so you know they went through a process in order to give you a conclusion, that their actual premise is based on something. Okay, are you taking an inductive, a deductive, an analytical approach to this information? You got to deal with that. The crap test in evaluating sources, I'm going to show you guys what that is in a moment. Okay, you got to go through these things, and consistency in argumentation to ensure that they are not contradicting themselves. Self-contradiction is a huge logical fallacy, and a lot of times people are inconsistent with the data that they utilize to defend their position, because the data itself may be inconclusive. And if it is, they got to tell you it's preliminary, or it's inconclusive, or this is just the general basis of it, and I'm going to build on this by adding that. They have to be very structured in presenting this information to you, so you understand what you're getting, and they can be held to these standards. So let's finish going through this book. All right. So he cites the Sun magazine. All right. I mean, it is what it is. He cites Zacharias Sitchin's findings. Zacharias Sitchin is not credentialed. He knows Hebrew because he was born a Jew in Palestine. But all scholars who have viewed his work, all of them say, where's his credentials for Sumerian, Akkadian, Ugaritic, or anything else? Where's his credentials for these things? Because he uses a lot of the terms and words, but he has no credentials. He has no schooling, no degrees in these things. He's not teaching anywhere. He's not tenuring anywhere. And Ancient Aliens, I used to love that show a few years ago. I used to watch that show inside and out. A lot of it is hinged on Eric von Däniken and Zacharias Sitchin's work, as well as all these other people that come out who are considered amateurs in the realm of academia. And they come out, and what they do is that they eisegete information into the textual data, and they create something brand new that can't be accounted for. It can't be. So when you put people through those 4 points that I just made, the crap test to evaluate sources, their methodology, to have them laid out, to make sure that it's structured, and make sure that it's academic, and to make sure that we know the direction in which they're going and how they came to their conclusion. Consistency in their argumentation and logical fallacies. If you hold people to these 4 things, you will be able to filter through the pseudo information, because pseudo information does not hold up to these things. Okay? So he went to deal with Zechariah Stitchin. Let's move forward. All right. Also, he cites a tabloid, Sun Magazine, a tabloid. All right, whatever. Then we go to page 82, right here. He talks about that. Remember Hale-Bopp family? Those of you who are old enough to remember that. Then he says, there are the comments made by astronomers about unusual object. This object that they are talking about is Nibiru, which I made known many years ago. The comet itself is not Nibiru. Nibiru is right next to this comet, is as seen the picture below. There is an entire book about the comet by Alan Hale entitled Everybody's Comet. Family, is this an academic work right here? I don't know. He says, are there any other groups of people that know about the Nibiru? And he gives you all this information. And look, he uses this source. Family, this source right here that people use a lot with this man that's seated and what looks like the sun and planets. Family, did they even read the cuneiform here? This cuneiform says nothing about constellations and stars and planets. It says nothing about that. Okay. And again, what I shared before, for those of you who want to double check, everybody's not an academic, everybody's not scholarly. So what I do is I teach you guys the tools that you can get so that way you can follow argumentation as it pertains to these type of discussions. Number 1, get you a lexicon of the language that is being discussed. So we talk about Sumeria, get a Sumerian lexicon. Number 2, get a Sumerian grammar guide or grammar book. And number 3, get the translation with the primary and or an interlinear of the text in question. And you'll be able to follow the discussion if you use these tools. This is so you can fact check anything that people are saying and anything that people are teaching. Okay? So when I went through the corpus of the references to the Anunnaki by Dr. Malachi Z. York, I used these tools because I'm not a Sumerian scholar. I know a little bit, but I'm not a Sumerian scholar, so I had to use tools. And with these tools, I was able to fact check everything that he said. And I saw a lot of it to be wanting. Okay. But let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. Let's go here to page 87. He says, today, Nibiru will be explained as a shuttle that is self-sustaining and life-supporting. Nibiru is a craft that is the mother plane, 3 times the size of the planet Earth, making it too large to get into the Earth's atmosphere. And let me say it again. When I said all of these things, you said I was making it up. Now, reality is confirming itself. I've been saying for years that if Christians will read the Bible and you Muslims will really read the Quran, you would find everything that I'm saying to you to be true. If you were just taking the time to learn the original languages. Now, hold on. Before we get to that, let's scroll up a little bit. What is Nibiru? Nibiru means planet of the crossing or planet that crosses the skies. It comes from the Ashuric Syriac Arabic word Nabara, which means raised, elevated, and is a derivative of the Aramaic, I think he meant to say Aramaic Hebrew word Nebresh. So a word in Sumerian comes from Arabic and Hebrew? What? Family. How can this word come from a language that did not exist when the word was written down? Okay. We're going to keep moving. He said, take time to learn the original language, which I've done on my own, of the scriptures in which they were revealed. Then you would get the true meanings instead of guessing at what the scriptures are saying or what the scriptures are trying to say or accepting someone else's word. So who are the Anunnaki that you are talking about? He goes on to say, they're the Malai, the Malai Kat in the Quran, Surah 2, verse 98. The Bible calls them Enhelos, which is the Koine Greek. The Sumerians call them the Anunnaki. Yoruba call them the Ginwins, the Shishiki, and the Umarwai. The American churches simply call them angels. Many other Native American tribes call them thunderbirds. In Egypt, they are called the Neteru. So that means he's saying these Nibiru are real. Look at this. This is the Anunnaki here. You know where he gets this from? Genesis chapter 18. He says there are 3 Anunnaki. These are the Elohim right here that created everything. These guys right here. And he goes into Genesis 18 to make his point. This is Abraham, son of Terah and Nuwaupian, and this is Sarah, daughter of Terah and Ida, right? Nowhere in the Bible does it give any indication where these 3 men came from. So they must be aliens, right? In Genesis 19:1, it says about these 2 men who mysteriously came down to the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. In one instance, they refer to the 2 beings as angels, where it says, and I quote, blah, 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 right? So this is what I was talking about as far as how he uses the root words in Hebrew, right? He doesn't really account for the grammar. Okay, so here, for example, ka asher, right? So if you look to see what he does, and Yahuwah Yalak went his way, and as Asher, as Asher, what are you looking at as Asher? You're looking at the kaf prefix here, and what that means. As he had kala, left dabar, speaking, dabar means speaking. So this is already in the present participle. I mean, you got to look here. The bear, le deber, or excuse me, le daber. So if it's le, which is a preposition, da ber, el. So you can start reading through this and say, wait a second. He's just using the word dabar. Does not say dabar. You have the dalet with your dagesh in the middle. You have your patak underneath, your bait with no dagesh in the middle, which is the b sound, right? I went over fricatives with you guys, well, in my crash course. And then you have the resh at the end. This does not say dabar. Dabar is the root word, but this has been this is the root word modified. He's not accounting for any of that. Then he goes and does this, and then he translates. Then he says the right translation in Aramaic Hebrew by him, because the mistranslations in the King James is as the Lord Yahweh went his way, and as soon as he had left communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. Then he goes again, only talking about these rules. He says Yalak is used for went his way, which means to go, to walk, depart. Really? So if Yalak means that, right here, he's talking about here. Does this say Yalak? Interesting. I want to know, is this third person masculine singular, second person common plural? Like, what is it that we're dealing with when we come to this word here in Hebrew? He's not really going into the grammar. He's like somebody that's reading a King James Bible that's keyed with Strong's Concordance, that is talking about not the concordance part of Strong's, but the lexicon part of Strong's. Concordance is the English dictionary part. And going back to that and using the root words and taking those root words and forcing them into the actual sentence structure to say, this is what this means here. That is not a proper way to exegete the text or to do any kind of midrash on a text. All right, family. So I wanted to go over some of this stuff. I really wanted to go over some of this stuff. I thought it was really interesting. Let me go over the crap test with y'all. And I'm going to be done because I think this is really like overkill right now. This is extremely overkill right now, especially when I don't have nobody to really chat. This is extremely overkill. All right, so Doctrine Enforcer. Again, you are still not talking about the subject matter, so I'm taking you out of here. Thank you for your participation, but you got to go. I gave you a warning. I timed you out. You're still in here trolling, so you got to go. You got to go. All right. Let's get back to what we was talking about. All right. So anyway, now that the distraction is gone. All right. So let me get into the crap test. All right. Let me get y'all into the crap test. I need y'all to see the crap test. What is the crap test? Where did I put this at? Here it is. This is the crap test. All right, let me show it to y'all. When you search for information, hold on, let me zoom in. Let me zoom in. I know. Let me zoom in. When you search for information, you're going to find lots of it. But is it good information? You will have to determine that for yourself, and the crap test can help. The crap test is a list of questions to help you evaluate the information you find. Different criteria will be more or less important depending upon your situation or need. And this right here is used by California State University, and a lot of universities worldwide use the crap test. All right, and academia, or scholars, professors, whoever's writing a paper, they also use this test. All right. Evaluation criteria. Number one, the C stands for currency, the timeliness of the information. When was the information published or posted? Has the information been revised or updated? Does your topic require current information, or will older sources work as well? And whenever you see this square box, it's talking about something being derived from the internet. Are the links functional? Because sometimes you may take a link and download it into a PDF file and go back to it and realize the link is not even up no more. Relevance, the importance of the information for your needs. Does the information relate to your topic or answer your question? Who is the intended audience? Is the information at an appropriate level, i.e. not too elementary or advanced for your needs? Have you looked at a variety of sources before determining this is the one you will use? Would you be comfortable citing this source in your research paper? Authority, the source of the information. Who was the author, publisher, source, sponsor? What are the author's credentials or organizational affiliations? Is the author qualified to write on the topic? Is there contact information such as a publisher or email address? And for the internet, does the URL reveal anything about the author or source? Examples, .com, .edu, .gov, .org, .net. Accuracy, the reliability, truthfulness, and correctness of the content. Where does the information come from? Is the information supported by evidence? Has the information been reviewed or refereed? Can you verify any of the information in another source or form or from personal knowledge? Does the language or tone seem unbiased and free of emotion? Or are there spelling, grammar, or typographical errors? That's extremely important. Okay. Purpose. The reason the information exists. What is the purpose of the information? Is it to inform, teach, sell, entertain, or persuade? Do the author's sponsors make their intentions or purpose clear? Is the information fact, opinion, or propaganda? Does the point of view appear objective and impartial? Are there political, ideological, cultural, religious, institutional, or personal biases? This is the crap test. So if I'm going to have an engagement, dialogue, debate, discussion with somebody, and they bring up a source, I'm going to put it through the crap test. And if I furnish a source, I want them to also put it through the crap test. Okay. It's a nice little video on the crap test. I'm going to go ahead and put the link to that video in the chat. Okay, I'm going to put the link in the chat. You can check it out. There it is. Let me show you guys the video for this crap test.
An important note is that
Hold on, let me share this with you. My bad, I'm getting a little tired, so that's why I'm sinking in my seat. All right, hold on. Let me get the crap test. Let's get the crap test.
This is you. You have a history report due on Italy. First, you'll need to find a reliable source, but you'll also run into an unreliable source, or more likely on the internet, lots of them. So the question is, how do you tell the difference between the two? I present you with the crap test. Before you go asking questions, let me clarify, it's not bathroom humor. CRAP is an acronym that helps you identify a reliable source. The C stands for currency, the R for reliability, the first A for authority of the author, the second for authority of the organization, and the P for purpose or point of view. Let's start with currency. Currency means it's current for the topic. You need to ask yourself, does it tell you when it was written? Second, try to figure out if the links on the page still work. An important note is that an article about cell phones from 1960 wouldn't be current, but the Civil War would be current. Next up is reliability. With this, you should ask, where did the author get their information? Do they provide you with links or citations, typically at the bottom? Or can the information be verified by checking on other sites? Next is the authority of the author. You should be asking, why do I trust the author? Does the author list their name? If they're proud of their work, they should. If you Google them, can you find what makes them an expert? Do they have a degree or education in the field? The second A stands for authority of the organization. Ask, can I trust the organization? If you look them up, can you figure out, are they a distinguished organization? Who published it? Also, what is the domain? The domain is the little code after the URL, and they all mean something. .com and .net typically are considered less reliable than .gov, .edu, and .org. P stands for purpose or point of view. In this, you're trying to figure out if the author addresses multiple perspectives. Ask, is their tone objective? Does it sound like fact, or are they ranting? Also, you should ask if the writing is biased. Does it clearly favor one perspective? If it was trying to sell you a shirt and said it was the softest shirt in the world, it would not be objective because there are no facts, and it is clearly biased because it's trying to sell you something. Let's review. The C stands for currency, the R for reliability, the A for authority of the author, the second for authority of the organization, and the P for purpose or point of view. It's important to note that while a reliable source may not pass all of these tests, if it's a good source, it should pass most of them.
The end. All right. So, all right. Let me close this. All right, family. I appreciate that, Mr. Barbados. So, as y'all see, still nobody showed up. Peace, family. Shout out to DKR Music in the building. Just Looking in the building. Daryl Yahoo Bendora in the building. Well, the CRAP test, you could just type it in, CRAAP, type it in Google, and you'll see it's on several universities' websites. So, I mean, I went through, I think, enough information. I had a lot more that I really wanted to bring out in this discussion, but if I don't have nobody to share it with, it's pointless, man. It's really pointless. And I'm just probably just gonna go get some rest now. I'm just gonna unwind after this. But and this is what I'm saying, right? A person who is going to be egotistical and say, "Oh, I'm ready for this situation because what? You think I'm the typical Black Hebrew Israelite that you meet, and that this is going to be a breeze or walk in the park?" Nah, it's not going to go down like that. And this is the problem. When people get so puffed up that they don't realize that there are different vantage points, and that's one thing that I realized for myself as well. And I wanted to really just hammer it home that when you have a dialogue, when you try to lump everybody in one category, it's very difficult. You create straw men, right? But the point that I wanted to do is showcase that the point of view in which I try to objectively present to the conscious community as it pertains to the Israelite culture is very unique, but it is a tool that can be used to rightfully divide the core ideologies of the community and understand them. I wanted to showcase that if Nuwaupians are going to talk about the Hebrew doctrine, they should be approaching it from this angle, from the information I share with you, in order for them to be unbiased and objective when speaking about what it is that we subscribe to and why we subscribe to it, or anything that pertains to the text. They also got to know about the redaction of the text, how the text was put together, what the scholars say about the text, the people that are in the field. I mean, you gotta know all of this stuff. This is extremely important. Extremely important. So I mean, yeah, I know. So at the end of the day, in order for us to better understand each other, we have to hear people out. Torah tells us that. Okay, you got to hear the matter of the great and of the small. You cannot be biased. Okay, you have to be fair. And this is something that has to be written in our DNA, so that way it is expressed phenotypically, abstractly, in how we walk and the essence of who we are. And maybe if we allow this to be ingrained in our mind, or even allow the text to epigenetically impose it onto us so that it forces what's in us to be expressed, then we would get a bit further when it comes to unity and understanding. So I don't know what else to say to y'all, family. I have no clue what else to say to this. What I would like to do, though, is share this link for the Hangouts in the chat. Give y'all a few more minutes if somebody wants to jump on the chat and say something. I mean, again, we still put the APB out for any Nuwaupian that's out there to join in. I know now the title is a bit misleading, which means I got to go back and I got to redo the title because nobody joined in. And I want to apologize to you guys. I know a lot of y'all came based on the flyer that was out there, promotion that was going, and nobody showed up. I showed you evidence that I reached out to these people, that they reached out to me, that they said they was going to do it, and they flaked. It's just what it is. Like I said, it's still on the table. If anybody knows a Nuwaupian, if Nuwaupian is watching this and you want to have a respectful dialogue, again, there's no ad hominems on my part. There's no explicit language on my part. And we want to talk and build about this Hebrew doctrine from your perspective and from mine. Let's do it. Definitely, let's do it. And definitely show me how I can avoid being food for the gods. Please show it to me. I need to know. So let me go ahead and put the link for the Hangouts in the chat. If anybody want to jump in the last 5-10 minutes, feel free to do so. I'm extremely tired now, disappointed, and just done. Really, I'm just done. I mean, I felt like I was sold wolf tickets. It's a lot, man. It was a lot. But like I said, one thing good about the scriptures is that it holds you accountable as much as possible. Even when we fall short, the text still establishes the standard that we have to follow. So those of you who follow the Tanakh and those of you who follow Brit Hadashah, hold true to it, hold fast. You know what I'm saying? And stand on your square, like they say. But at the same time, be a little bit more open-minded to take an objective approach to your studies. And I'm telling you, man, it will do you a world of good. A world of good. So the link is in the chat. Anybody can click on it and jump in real quick. So I'm gonna give y'all 5 minutes. If somebody wants to jump, nobody jumps in 5 minutes, I'm out. Family, I'll have another session where I'll do a Q&A with you guys. So I know a lot of you posted questions. If I don't get somebody else to have a discussion with me next week, I'm hoping I'll have time because I still got to do my class next week. Then I will just open the floor to Q&A, and I'll open up the platform. Anybody can jump in, ask questions, make statements, and we could just have an open dialogue. A lot of times people, for some reason, don't like to really jump in the chat. I mean, the live chat or the Google Hangouts and just have a dialogue or ask questions or make statements or whatever. I see a lot of other people, they'll be in the chat, talk all of the stuff, and I put the link in there and they don't show up. So, it is what it is, man. But like I said, at the end of the day, humility, man. I'm telling you, humility, man. To know that you're a servant. That is your duty. That is your obligation to serve your creator and the people that he has placed around you. Now, there are limitations to servitude based on the conditions and the situations. But at the end of the day, if this stuff is not transforming your character, then it's all in vain. It's all for naught. So I see somebody jumped on. Not sure who this is. So whoever that is in there. Please tell us your name and where you calling from.
Shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom. This is Sean out of Florida, out of Jacksonville.
Oh, what's good, Sean?
What's
My
going
brother
on?
right there.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Are you on your phone or your computer?
I'm actually on my phone.
Okay. Are you near your computer?
The wife is on it, man. She over here putting in work.
That's what I was gonna ask. I was gonna say if y'all wanna advertise anything, you can go ahead and do it now too if you like.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's your show, man. You can go ahead and put it out there, man, for the people. You know what we do. My
Let me
wife
find it.
is.
Well, while I'm looking for it, go ahead. You want to say something or ask
Oh
a
yeah,
question?
like I said, I mean, I can put it out there. Anybody that's interested in skincare, natural skincare products. My wife is really good at this or whatnot. Her website is redrosenaturals.com. She's been doing it for about a year and has had much success. So we definitely appreciate everybody that has come out to support that. And we also have a homeless organization called My Father's Works that we're into, and you can find that on Facebook. So we've been doing that for about 2 years, I believe, or whatnot. So very thankful to everybody that's been able to donate, share that information or whatnot. We've been able to do a lot of good work here out in Jacksonville. So just appreciative of whatnot. But yeah, this is my wife's site, redrosenaturals.com. Like I said, it's a all natural skincare company that she actually does. Everything is handcrafted. So again, I appreciate you actually sharing that link or whatnot, brother.
All right, I'm gonna share the link too for your foundation. All right. So do you have any question, statement? Do you want to say anything, share anything? Go ahead. The floor
Oh,
is yours.
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Like I said, great work tonight, man, with going into the whole Nuwaupian movement or whatnot, man, and kind of answering questions in that regard. I've been following it for the last couple of days. It's definitely a shame that brothers haven't been able to come on and dialogue with you, back and forth. I think that could have been edifying in a lot of different ways, and some pertinent information probably would have followed or whatnot. But just hearing you talk about it has been fantastic. So great job with that. On a personal question, I did have a question. I know you've been kind of going into the Northern Kingdom, and I've heard you touch on it tonight in regards to Second Temple Judaism versus that of pre-Islamic Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you look at Second Temple Judaism as a religion, or pretty much after it fell, like 70 CE? Like once it fell, and then like the rabbis kind of took up the mantle of the Pharisees and started to develop rabbinic Judaism? Or do you just look at Second Temple Judaism like what Hamashiach would have been dealing with? Do you look at that as like the religious aspect? Or I hope that's a clear question to you. Or do you need me to rephrase it? You there, Ak? Shalom, shalom. Did that brother drop? Hey, Shalom, Mark, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. I think he probably dropped out, bro. Can't hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, probably dropped out, bro.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
Shalom, Hakeem. How you doing?
All right, there we go. Wow, that was crazy, man. My bad, y'all. My laptop locked up. Crazy. I never have these issues with my desktop, but I still have it in the box since I moved it. It's all good. So I heard your question, Sean. First, let me say what's up to Bezalel, Liel, excuse me, in the building. Derariah, also in the building. Thank you guys for joining in. I'm going to give y'all a moment to speak. Derariah, I'm going to mute you real quick. I'll mute you in a moment. Sean, they're asking you to explain about the homeless drive. I was looking for it on Facebook. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, it's called My Father's Works.
Isn't there a GoFundMe for that too?
Well, actually, no, that we we stopped the fundraiser probably like a couple of days back, maybe about 4 or 5 days back or whatnot. We stopped it or whatnot, so we probably won't, put that back up until like after our next drive. We have a drive actually coming up, or an event the 21st, I believe. I'm sorry, the 22nd of this month. So we'll probably put it back out there maybe next month or whatnot.
All right, let me see if I can find it.
My Father's Works. The S at the end of works.
Yeah, I see it. All I see is just one post, a few posts on it. Let me see. Oh, this might be it right here. Oh, okay, this is something that was ongoing since like last year, right? I think I found it.
Yeah, we've been at it about 1.5 years, 2 years.
All right, let me show it. I got it. Let me show it on the screen real quick. Hold on. All right, because this is awesome stuff that you're doing. And I know I said I will show it, and I need to keep my word. All right, so I'm going to let y'all see it real quick, family. Hold on. This is it right here. All right, you can go to Facebook, type in My Father's Work. All right, and this is at My Father's Work Ministry. All right, and you can go in and take a look here. You can see the fundraising that they do. You could read up on it to see what it is that they're doing there. And if you want to contact Sean, he's on Facebook as well. Can I reach out to you on Facebook, Sean?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
His name is Sean McGee on Facebook. You can go through it and see all the things that they're doing in the community. This brother and his wife is seriously about community work. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing I got to give him credit for. You know what I'm saying? It's good to have people like that support what you do. All right, so you guys go and check this out for yourselves. All right, and you can see all of this here. What park is this right here, Sean?
Well, it's almost like an open field. It's like directly across. Yeah, I'm here. It's almost like it's like an open field pretty much. It's not necessarily like they don't necessarily like allow people to do it like at parks. You know what I mean? It's kind of just like an open area where a lot of homeless people tend to be or whatnot. It's like right across the street from a library downtown. So They just all kind of congregate that way or whatever. And we just go down there, like I said, and show them love. You know what I mean?
Nice, nice. That's what's up. I appreciate that, man. Those of you go out there.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, go out there to Facebook, like that page, support the brother. Anytime you're doing a fundraising, just let me know on a Friday before I go live, and I'll go ahead and let the family know. All right.
Absolutely.
let me go ahead and answer your question, and then I'm going to let on Bezalel and Doraya on. So the question you asked is the difference between the ancient pre-exilic Israelite culture and Second Temple Judaism, right? So to sum it up, Second Temple Judaism is post-exilic, and pre-exilic Israelite culture is pre-exilic, right? One is before exile, one is after exile. So before, and I showed 2 books on one of my live streams that you guys can read that'll give you more information so you can understand the origins of Judaism. And Judaism pretty much is something that originated with Ezra and Nehemiah and the restoration of the temple, the city walls, and the city. They have found a book, which was, we don't know what book exactly it was. It did contain some of the ordinances, statutes, and commandments in it. But as far as the narrative and, what was in the book, we don't know. But when they found it, they restored the obligations that the community had to their creator. So at that point, they didn't really have nothing written. Most stuff was oral tradition, and oral tradition kept by social memory, a group of 2, 3, or more peoples. And when they had the book that was written, which was the mandate on what they were to follow, it is said by scholars that at that point, that's when the start of Judaism took place. And that is the transition into what we call monotheism that took place as well. And that's when you start to see the biasness in the text from the perspective of the Yahudim, right? Because at that point, they believe the text were redacted. How do we know that some redactions existed? Is because you have some loan words. You have Persian loan words in the text, right? You have Aramaic that is in the text. All of this has to do with acculturation with another community, and or over time, you may lose the right word to use to explain something, and you borrow a word or have a loan word that's already in your vocabulary that you then add to the text. So they're able to trace these things back and see these little peculiarities in the text to know that, okay, this was redacted at this point because they used this word, which if it was more antiquated, they would have used another word in its place. So it became a religion because now it came to a point where the Israelites at that time, the Yahudim, had to appeal to the governing power, which was Cyrus, and then later on Darius. They were the ones responsible for giving the mandated decree for them to return back. According to the text, it says that the Most High used Cyrus as his mouthpiece, pretty much as his Mashiach, as his Messiah, his anointed one, to allow the Israelites to go back and for them to restore the city temple and the walls. And the reason for that is so that way Yah can put the ring back on that he had took off previously. He had took off the ring because of the last king of Judah, and now he has put back on the ring because of the obedience of Zerubbabel, right? Or Zerubbabel, right? So the pre-exilic era, the Israelites were living in more of an egalitarian society in which there was fairness across the board. The northern tribes, being that they were located towards the north, and if you look at a map, you go to see that the regions in which they had lived was a different climate and a different environment than the southern regions, right? So certain things will be more prominent and important to the northern tribes than it would be to the southern tribes. When I say southern tribes, I'm talking about Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, right? Even though some Levites did venture far north, but they had to come back to do certain duties depending upon what their role was with and when it pertained to the temple. The cultural aspect is, how do we live in an ecological frame or framework, if you want to call it, so that way we're in harmony with one another, we're in harmony with nature, so that we can derive favor from the deity in which we worship, right? When you raise up a king, because this was all set in place before a king came on the scene. When you raise up a king, you are shifting that priority, and you're giving more clout to the king, to the region in which the king is actually living. And you're also giving clout to this king being the favored one of the Most High, because in those days, the king was the mediator between man and God. And I'm saying God, for a lack of word, should really be the higher powers, right?
Right.
And therefore, now we're going to shift to the point where the culture is being regulated by the mandates and the dictates of the king. So now we have something that's more politically driven, as opposed to just having your tribes or your chiefdoms prior. Now it's a situation where a king is trying to unite all of these scattered tribes and bring them under the umbrella of the nation. And then we have one king that tried, he failed. David tried, did a lot of good, but then towards the end, he started to have some issues. He passed. Then his son Solomon came on the throne and reaped the benefits of David and what David did. And remember, the priests are catering to the kings.
To the king, right.
Priests are catering to the kings. So if the priest, which is right here, and the king, which is right here, are being the executive branch, and the priest being the judicial branch, because the legislation has came from Yah, but you have in smaller towns and cities judges and officials, right? We see this. The text says, put judges in every city, put officials in every city. So you have on a microcosm level, you have officials that are officiating over the legislation and the judges that are carrying out the judicial ruling over certain matters that would come up before them before they got to bring it to a federal level. And we see that certain things are expedited to a federal level depending upon the situation. What does this have to do with religion? And what does it have to do with culture? We're seeing a transition where people are living in harmony with one another, with nature, and with the common guidelines in which they were given when they exited out of Mizraim. Now it is transitioning based on political pressures. Number one, what is the political pressures? During that time period, we have a situation where the Sea Peoples came onto the Levant and they changed up everything. They destroyed Ugarit. They weakened the Egyptian vassal kings and smaller kingdoms that were there in Canaan. And now the Israelites are not a nation at this point. They're amongst a group of other Canaanites. They are one ethnic group amongst other Canaanites. We have that from Meren Patah Stele, where it talks about Israel or Israel, because the R and L can be interchangeable in the Medunetia. So we see that they were recognized as a people, not as a kingdom, as a people. So they were one of many ethnic groups that was in that region. And when the Sea Peoples came on the scene in Peleg, which is the Philistines, were one of these peoples that came onto the coastal plains and started to set up shop. They were a more mature cultural people. They had a more mature organizational structure, a mature kingdom, because they were coming from the Aegean Sea islands in which they lived, and they already had a tenured period of time in which they developed as a kingdom. When they came onto the coastal plains, they pushed a lot of those Canaanite peoples into the Central Hill countryside and or amalgamated with the ones that stayed on the coastal plains. Now, this is all important because these pressures were pushed against and encroaching upon the settlement areas that the tribes had. Now, over time, as time develops, you see this in 1 Samuel chapter 7, 1 Samuel chapter 8. You'll see this. What preceded the action to ask for a king? They were fighting with the Philistines. And the Philistines were expanding their empire. So now you're no longer trying to live in a harmonic state with many peoples there, because now your very existence is being threatened. Your very trade and source of revenue is being threatened. So you want to be structured and organized just as much or even better than the society that's neighboring you that is encroaching upon your territory. So now the transition leads from just being an egalitarian society, living in harmony, everybody has equal rights, and following the precepts that come from their cultural mandates, which we call Torah, and it transitions over to shifting and kind of like alleviating some of that pressure of having to bear this egalitarian mindset for the sake of giving up some of those securities over to the king so he can provide protection for the people. It's almost like today. You know, we have the Constitution, right? And the preamble to the Constitution, all men are created equal, that sounds very egalitarian until you realize that we are no longer a republic. We are democracy. There's a shift. Why? Because of certain things that are happening to the society, whether it's society being bankrupt, whether there's a civil war, whether there's certain treaties, all of these things starts to influence the direction in which the society goes. Because if the so-called founding fathers of America were to look at the state of the government today, it would be very foreign to them. They wouldn't identify it. They wouldn't know what the hell this thing is. They'd be like, yo, this thing is out of control. Because now we have things such as the Patriot Act, which people are willing to surrender their sense of security, their freedoms for a sense of security. So it was the same thing in ancient Israel. So now we see a transition. So now when you transition and shift the power from the chiefs over these tribes and give it up to the king, and you're centralizing the power, now you're giving up certain freedoms and certain liberties of your culture for the sake of a political regime that is going to protect you from the encroaching threat of an opposing ethnic group. Now, when this regime is established because of the priests. You never have really a true monarchy. It's always an oligarchy. There's always a few that are the ruling class over the many. And that oligarchy consists of the priests, because the priests have to officiate the king unless a coup is formed, as we see in the northern tribe, so-called a coup, when they broke away from Rehoboam and made Jeroboam the king. Jeroboam knew that, hey, I can't just be a king by myself. I need priests. So that's why he took astute people and made priests out of them, and they made temples, because he was scared that if they went to the south, that they would, be taken in with Rehoboam's wickedness that he was doing in the south. So now the people are leaving their cultural and they're going towards more of a political reign, more towards a religious reign, because now we'll see when Israel starts to fall, the blame is going on the king and the priest. So what happens is now you have a situation where they go into exile. They have enough time, especially the southern tribe. Northern tribes are scattered. And there's some of the poor ones that are still in the land. This is who the returning Yahudim encountered when they were trying to rebuild the city, temple, and walls. But now they're 70 years in Babylon, and they're being acculturating with another society. They got to learn a new calendar system, know the new political regime that's in place, know the rules, the statutes, the laws and bylaws, what deities have to get prominence in these regions. This is when we start to see the emergence of synagogues happen in Babylon. Right. But now what happens is the priests no longer work in the temple. They need a job. They got to eat. So they create these synagogues. And what do? They take all the deep things that they've been teaching and keeping, and they make it available to any initiate that wants to come in and want to learn of this deity called Yah. So now we have a situation where it no longer is a cultural paradigm that protects those who agree upon the culture to prevent any kind of hostile, adversarial, foreign entity from coming in and usurping what they have established that has been epigenetically imposed upon that society to protect them as an immune system from anything that is adverse to that community. Now you lose that once you open up the doors and you bring initiates in that are outside the borders of the sovereign reign and rule of that culture. So now we have a shift that starts to happen, where now you're opening the culture up to initiating people to come in and partake of the things that was held sacred to your people. So now what happens is 70 years in Babylon, you're learning Babylonian ways and concepts and reckoning of time. You're coming back on a political venture. Remember, the only reason why they was able to come back because Cyrus opened up the mandate. You go to Cyrus Cylinder and you can see this for yourself. And they took advantage of this political matter. But look what happens. While they were in Babylon, they were in close proximity to Zoroastrians, people who study Zoroastrianism. You see a form of Zoroastrianism in the book of Mattheyahu in the Brit Hadashah and Matthew chapter 2, where you see these three wise men. No, it's not a wise man. It's the Magi. Magi are Zoroastrian priests. Right. Why are Magi going, looking at the star, going to follow some king of the Jews that's there in Bethlehem? Well, if you don't understand the close proximity that happened when they was in Babylonian captivity, you want to understand why the writers felt the need to insert that element in there to show you that not only is he the king over the Yahudim or the so-called Jews, but also to everybody, because people from the East are also seeking for a Messiah, because they also feel that the current regime is encroaching upon their freedoms and their culture. So now you're coming back after having been in proximity, close proximity with another culture, with another people, and you've already opened the doors, the priests, to allow initiates in, proselytes in. You come back into the land off of a political mandate. You're rebuilding the city, temple, and the walls, right? Now you have a situation where they realize something. They say, hey, wait, this book says we got to separate from other people, right? Why? Because these other people or ethnic groups, their patron deity is not the same deity that's in this text. They're going to lead us astray at some point because of their culture. Maybe the food that they eat is based on them getting praise to their deity. When the Israelites keep their dietary law, that's giving worship to their deity. That is setting them apart, making them distinct. So now if you're marrying a foreign people and you see that the literature of your ancestors is telling you not to eat pork, and let's say, for example, you marry a Philistine, and if we go back to the archaeological record, the Philistines are eating pork. They're eating pigs, swine bones all over there in their strata. You know, listen, we can't stay married to these people because what they're going to do is they're going to drive us away from Yah unless we know these people are willing to give up the very nature of their culture and their ethnic group to yoke up unto Israel, which during those times was very difficult because it's just like a political affiliation today. People are Democrats, Republicans, independents. That's like you telling somebody, hey, if we're going to get married, you can no longer be a Democrat. You vote me. Start to see these type of issues. That's what happened in people's households. But what they've already done is they already opened up the Torah to everybody. They took some concepts from Babylon and Zoroastrianism and they used that to restore their culture, because remember, they were lost for 70 years without the text. So they were going based off of oral tradition and looking at the similarities between them and the other cultures that they were neighboring. So now we see a transition now where now it's like, okay, how did we fall? Well, you know what? The northern tribes, it was their fault. They're the reason why we fell. So you know what? Why did they fall? Man, we were very henotheistic. Let's now teach that there's only one power. No other power exists, just one power. So now you have this concept of monotheism that start to come into place. And from the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, you have a different set of Levitical priests. It's not the same ones that were there in the sovereign state. You have a different set of them. So now different motives is on the table. So we go from that point of being in Persian captivity where the Israelites were allowed to freely express their religion. At that point, it's starting to develop into religion. And then now the Greeks come on the scene, and now the game is starting to change. Then the Romans come on the scene, the game is starting to change. A lot of those so-called Pharisees, oral traditions that they kept contained in the Talmud, which is the Gemara and the Mishnah today, the Pharisees came on the scene during the Hasmonean period, during the Maccabean revolt. They didn't exist before that. There was no such sect such as the Pharisees. It didn't exist. So now you can trace back to the first Pharisees as far as the time period. And now when you start to see this sect that's making themselves distinct from another sect, the Sadducees, and another sect, the Zealot, and another sects who are on the offshoots of society, the Essenes, now what they're doing is they're codifying their particular take on, I'm not going to say the religion, but I guess what they consider their culture. So now what they start to do is create these other bylaws that are oral, and then they start to say, hey, we need these things, because what they're doing is what's called halakha. 70 years in Babylon, you will start to lose certain things that is tradition, because you're now out of your homeland in another homeland where there's other traditions, other culture that's there. And when you're coming back, you're trying to restore those traditions, because when you read the text, it doesn't tell you specifically how to perform certain things. So you got to figure it out and say, okay, well, I guess this is how we can start killing the lamb now. It doesn't tell us how to do it, but you know, when we was in Babylon, that's how we used to kill the lamb over there. Guess we could do the same thing now. They start to lose these things because the prior generation has died off. You have a newer generation that's coming there. Because Zerubbabel, from his father Yachanan, prior to him, is almost 3 generations. So now you have a situation where a generation can be 40 years. In this case, there were 70 years in Babylon. So you're going through almost 2 generations. Older generation has died off. This is why Aramaic started to become part of their language, because it was the lingua franca at that time. So they were speaking Aramaic. That's why when they opened up the book, some of the elders that were still alive, they were able to read the Hebrew. Barely, but they was able to make their way through the Hebrew. The newer people was like, yo, we don't understand. That's when you read the text, it says, then the ones who did understand were able to talk and explain to the ones who did not have understanding, because they couldn't understand the language. That's like somebody coming from Africa, let's say Senegal, from Africa, making their way over to America, first generation, that knows the tongue of that hometown. They come over here, and 70 years later, what do you think their descendants are going to be speaking 70 years later? English. English. And they may have some euphemisms, they may have some idioms, they may have some of these things, or even a dialect. Well, at that point, 70 years, you kind of lose your dialect. They might have some of these things still in their vernacular, but for the most part, their primary language is English. So if somebody was to give them some kind of text that was written in the language of a 70-year-ago ancestor, they'd be like, I don't know what this is. Like, what is this? They'd have to get somebody that's still alive that's about 80 years old, not 80, had to be like at least 85 years old to actually explain to them what that means. And that 85-year-old had to be in this country long enough so that way English becomes a second language so they can then translate. This is the things that they had to face. So this is very, very important. So now we're leaving the culture where we're in a society where the cultural values are there. There's an egalitarian society. Everybody's worried about human rights, doing the right thing, treating the neighbors fairly, all of these things until transition into a political regime in which the priest and the king rule to get in exile. And then now you're acculturating with the neighboring ethnic groups that are there and somebody else's society coming back under a political mandate, which you had to appease to in order for you to come back to the land. And then from there, try to reestablish everything that you lost from being in captivity. Now you have to add your own halakha, which is a way of reading the text, right? A midrash is a way of exhuming information from the text. And halakha is how do we add specifics to ordinances that are laid out that are not specific? How do we make them specific? So now they start to create this thing, which becomes their oral Torah. But they say that, oh, this goes back all the way to Abraham, which is very difficult being that you're in exile for 70 years and you have to acculturate in order for you to survive in somebody else's society. Now you get to the scene where Indo-Europeans are now taking over control and you see how they delegate their religious affairs. And then now what you do, you start to appease to them. Now the Pharisees, they were the people's champ. The Sadducees were the ones that were more Hellenistic. The Zealots didn't care. They just wanted a political regime of their own people. And the Essenes did not care about anybody. They just lived on the outskirts of society. You know what I'm saying? And this is where you start to get the development of the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Qumran community that were influenced by the Essenes. Some people believe that they are the offshoots of the Essenes. Some people believe they were just a group that was influenced by the Essenes. You don't know for certain.
Right.
So now when you start to take your culture and start bringing any old person in, now you're turning into a religion because now it's not serving to your community by itself because now you're allowing other people to come in. And when you allow other people to come in, they may have other ideas. We see this with Christianity. The first people who were really bringing the message of Yahusha were Israelites, Yahudim, right? But over time, who started to become the ruling class of that school of thought? It was no longer them. So they were no longer able to keep and maintain a culture around a message of the kingdom. Now it became open for everybody. And you'll see when they got scattered, the first thing that the apostles did, they went to their own people. They looked for the Jews in the places they were scattered. And then those Jews, who they told the message to, then went to Gentiles and started to share it to the Gentiles because it was not their mission or assignment to go to the Gentiles. Paul made that clear. So now we see all of these things that are changing, and it's leaving from the egalitarian society mindset of human rights for everybody. We're going to work in harmony with nature because you can tell this by their way in which they work the land. They let it rest for X amount of years, etc. The scriptures say that if they let the rain rest and keep the statute, laws, and commandments, he will make sure that the rain comes in its due season and that they will have increase in their crops. If you go to Israel now, the weather that's there, the crops that's there is not as consistent as it was back in the day because a lot of the real people are not there right now. They're not in control. And that's done until the Most High intervenes. So that's how we've gotten a shift. Now, if you want more specifics on this, there are several books that you can get and you can read, and it goes more in depth than what I'm saying, at least 1,400 pages between 3 different books. Can actually explain this in more depth. So you can see every marker of what it say. Hey, all of the external influences that came into the culture. How can we filter that and get back to that egalitarian mindset where we become fair towards one another, become servants to each other, and also take into account what our ancestors left us, in which they were divinely inspired by Yah, and make it a reality today so that when people see us, they know that we are a peculiar people. So hopefully that helps to answer your question. If you want those books, also let me know and I'll email them to you if you don't already have them. All right, so Bazalael or Lael, I'm gonna you can unmute your mic if you're still there.
Shalom, shalom. Thank you for having me on, brother.
Anytime. You can. The floor is yours. If you want to ask a question, if you want to make a statement, if you want to share something, floor is yours.
Well, first I would just want to thank for all the work you've done, you put out here for the community, and thanks for Sean actually sharing what his wife does, and actually you answering that question, answering my own question too previously that I posted in the chat, and I think that was real thorough enough. And if you could email me as well those sources out, that'd be very much a great asset to me as well. I was curious to know if you came across any information as it relates to Bereshit chapter 21 and 8, where we see Abraham holding a feast for Isaac, the weaning ceremonies, so to speak, in the West African communities of the Israelites, where we hold these sort of feasts or rites of passage or ceremonies done in Africa. Right now, there's a ceremony done in the Hindu spirit that's called an Annapurshana, where they feed rice to the baby as a sort of like I say, a rite of passage. So I'd be curious to know if you come across it, or if you do, be great if you could share that with me as well.
All right, that's an excellent question. What was the scripture again you gave? I'm sorry.
It's Bereshit chapter 21 and 8.
So this is almost like what's called a bar mitzvah,
Okay.
or coming into of age. And a feast is normally held to indicate to the community that this child is now coming into adulthood, right?
Right.
And like you said, we see this also in other cultures, more prominently also in West African cultures. There's a book that I had shared with everybody. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay.
Where it talks about the coming of age in West African cultures and societies. One particularly in this book, it was the Igbo that it was talking about, Igbo women. Let me see if I can find it for y'all. Igbo women. I shared it in one of my live streams before. What was the name of that book? I had the PDF somewhere. Because what you're saying lines up with one of the feasts that they have. And the name of it escapes me at the moment.
One of the feasts of the Igbo?
Yeah.
You said? Okay.
Coming of age for the women. And then there's one for the men as well.
Okay.
I gotta find that and share it. Again, that's an excellent question, man. Excellent question. Because then things start to happen to them. Sometimes they'll get tattoos. Sometimes they'll get, for some societies, they'll get scarification on the face. Sometimes they'll wear beads or have their hair braided a certain way. Sometimes they'll wear body paint. Sometimes they'll be dressed in a certain type of dress, so that way they can be identified, like ancient Israel during the patristic period, where women would dress a certain way so they could be acknowledged as being single or as being married or as being a prostitute. All of these things are important to note that the people in that society would automatically be able to identify today, right? So I really want to find what you're talking about, man. This is really eating at me now.
Yeah, that's how it usually goes, right?
Yeah, right. Well, I probably have it here. Let me look and see. I probably have it. Yeah, let me see. I think it might be in here.
Oh, and Sean, he said he's calling out of Florida, right? I forgot to say I'm out of Tampa, Florida.
In Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville. Okay.
Yeah. Let me see if this is it. No, it's not there. I might have to get back to you on that.
Oh, that's
What I'm
fine.
gonna do is write down a list of some parallels
Okay.
so that people can actually see what it is that we're talking about.
Mhm.
Because I definitely was not prepared to address that right.
Yeah.
Caught me off guard, but it was an excellent question. So I'm gonna get back to that. But just to properly exegete the passage is
Right.
that anytime a young boy, young girl are weaned, when they say weaned, it's not always necessarily from off the breast,
Right.
but weaned in regards to the child's at a point where they have to cleave unto the mother. And now when they get to that time of age, the father now takes over to show that child how to lead, or what to do,
Mm,
how society functions. You know what I'm saying? So
mm,
they leave that bosom or that intimate place of the mother or of the home, and now they're out there doing the work in the field and interfacing with the elders and things of that nature. So a feast is always given so that the society knows that this child has come of age, and that now more responsibility is to be expected of that child. And we see this in, like you said, even the Hindus do this.
right.
Yeah. Chinese do this also. And you also see this in West Africa. So this is something that's common. It's the way that it's executed is different, but the concept you see is the same. So it was not alien to ancient Israel as well. This was something that they did always. So even
Mm,
today, there's some people that are divided. Oh, should we celebrate birthdays? Should we not to celebrate birthdays?
exactly.
Came of age, they had a feast for him. At
Right.
least 1 year out of his life as a child, he celebrated something. And
Hmm.
again, this was not for self-serving purposes. This was now to tell the child, now you are an instrumental element of this community. It's going to either make it or break it based on your participation.
Yep.
And everything that we've taught you up to this point, you are now held responsible as an adult to carry it out. This is a heavy burden. Now
Yeah.
imagine if our children, whatever age we designate them to, maybe it mostly is after puberty, right?
Right.
They're 13, 14 years old, and you telling a 13, 14-year-old the entire success of the community relies on you. How much do you think that will put that child in a mindset to say, let me be careful with the actions that I take and the things that I do at a young age?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That your parents now are holding a feast. They may not have been able to afford it, but they saved everything up to that point. So as a reminder to you and the community that now we are offering another individual to help the society move forward, to help sustain it, to help protect it, to help nurture it. If it's a woman, this is
Mm-hmm.
extremely important. So that's an excellent question, man. Excellent question.
That's
I'm
good.
gonna be more prepared next time. All right. And I'm gonna give you some of the parallels so that way, not just for you, maybe for you too. Maybe there's a few you don't know about that I can share with you. Maybe you can share more with me, but just for the listening and watching audience as well.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I don't know much. Just I know you had some examples impromptu actually when you the casting of lots and libations. I thought this would be another tool or a cultural marker that we can implement that sort of sets us apart and restoring our culture.
That's awesome, man. You have the perfect mind frame, Bach. You know what it is. That's excellent. And again, when we start implementing these things that are not, because there are other cultural elements besides just the statute, laws, and commandments, right?
Right.
That
Right.
we can also execute because it is also helpful with something that our ancestors have done and have yielded results from doing.
Right.
And like you said, that feast is something that the patriarchs have done, and they've done it again so that way we can implement in our community, because teaching the youth at that age that they are responsible if the community makes it or breaks it is a daunting task, but at the same time, it forces them to zakar, to remember what is my purpose? They wouldn't have to, because they would know. Remember that feast that my parents did for me when I was 13, 14? Okay, I have an obligation to this community.
Mm-hmm.
And if the so-called Black community, if we had that at that age, like you said, we implemented that custom, it would change a lot of things over a course of time, man. It would, because the youth wouldn't be so troubled, because a lot of times the youth are out there because they don't know what their purpose is. You go to school and the school's telling you about evolution, and then you get from the point of evolution to your ethnicity. How you get here?
Right.
Oh, you was a slave. That's how you started here.
Right.
How somebody start off as a slave? How you start somebody like that? But now in their mind, it's like, okay, well, I guess society does not respect me. I guess I don't have no history. I don't have no cultural continuity. I don't have any identity. So, hey, it doesn't matter if I live or die. It's YOLO. I don't care if I kill somebody else. Who cares? Nobody cares about us. It doesn't matter. because
Right.
they don't know what their purpose is. They don't know they have an obligation to the community. So therefore, they don't care about killing the community, selling drugs, shooting, prostituting themselves. They don't care about those things.
All
You know what I'm
right.
saying? And the
Oh,
media
yeah.
does not help it at all either. So.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you for that, Ak. That was valuable. Matter of fact, you've added to my studies. Thank you for that. I
No,
love
thank
when I
you,
learn
brother.
from people share insights with me. It helps me to grow and get better. So I appreciate that, Ak.
All praises, brother. All praises.
All right, so I'm gonna mute you for a second. Let me let the last person on, Deraraya, who waited patiently. The floor is yours. I'm gonna mute myself. You can make a statement, give some insight, ask a question, and then after this, I'm gonna end off, family, and I'll see y'all again next week. So the floor is yours. Deraraya, are you there? The floor is yours. You gotta unmute your mic.
Shalom, shalom. Can I be heard?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Thanks for having me on, on the live broadcast, whatnot. I have a few questions, but I'm gonna focus on one in particular. It's just for conversational slash edification slash understanding purposes for those who are listening now and for those who are will listen in the future. It's in regards to what you was talking about with the first individual, the first brother who was asking the question. I guess I could be framing this wrong. The difference between pre-exile Israel and post-exit Israel and some different type of aspects in regards to that. But what I want to hone in on is in regards what you would says in regards to the um individuals that in scholarship they call their saints, right? I want to ask a question and for you answer, and then maybe I do like a follow up.
Yeah, that's cool. We got a few more minutes. I'm okay with that.
Okay, cool. Right. From your perspective and your understanding from the scholarship that you have delved into in regards to their scenes, what are your thoughts concerning them, and do you think they are, or do they pertain, or do they hold a certain leadership role in Israel? And I must say, I do stutter, so I do apologize about this. So, in regards to that, so go ahead, bro.
And it's no problem. Hey, no apologies needed. No apologies needed. Take your time. I'm not going to cut you off. I give you ample enough time to convey what you want to say. If you need to reiterate it, you have the opportunity to reiterate it. This is a very fair platform that I give to anybody that wants to join in. So I appreciate you even participating and asking that question, so that way we can bring some light to this to the listening audience and viewing audience. So you asked me a question on the scenes, and you asked me, do the scenes have any kind of influential role? I guess who they were, what they taught, or leadership as it pertains to our community today, or those who subscribe to be in Israel. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I did a lecture. It's called "The Patriarchal Priesthood in the Bible Unveiled," and it's a part 1 and part 2. I don't know if you've seen it. But if you have it, go back and check it out. I did it back in 2015. Again, it's called The Patriarchal Priesthood in the Bible Unveiled. All right. And in that, I talk about the period of time from the book of Malachi closing to Matthew opening. And I said that history there is the apocryphal history. Apocryphal just means hidden, right? And I explained to people that if you don't understand what happened during that time period, you might as well throw the New Testament out, right? Because you're not going to see what happened to cause everything to be the way that it is. How come all of a sudden the Romans are in charge? How come all of a sudden there's some Pharisees? You don't see none of this stuff in Malachi. So it's like, what happened? And one of the groups that came about were the Essenes. Now, let me give you a little bit of feedback on Essenes and move forward. Now, I'm gonna share with you where I'm at now as opposed to where I was at a couple years ago, right? So a couple years ago, I held the to a high regard and the Qumran community to a high regard, right? I was much into the commentary on the Tanakh by the Qumran community. I read a lot of the writings from historians like Josephus and others, and church fathers as well, who make reference to their scenes, as well as the Qumran community. And then they influenced the Nazarenes, and they also influenced the Ebionites, right? When it comes to the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, my subscription is that the Ebionites and the early Nazarenes were the ones that really held to a lot of the Essenic teachings and the Qumran teachings. And at the same time, they had their Mashiach, or their righteous teacher, was Yahusha ben Yosef. Okay. The Essenes had a lot of metaphysical teaching. And the reason for that is because when you look at these group of people that came together, and some of these were Levitical priests, right? What was going on was you have a schism that happens, right? You got to read the book of Maccabees, first, second Maccabees, to understand what was going on. A schism happened where you had various factions based on this Maccabean revolt. And some people said, hey, I don't think we want to be involved in any of this. So we're going to go to the outskirts of society, near the Jordan River, and we're going to live in these caves and create our own community. So what the Essenes were doing was the Essenes believed that the priesthood was tainted. They believed the land was tainted, and they decided to withdraw themselves from society. We don't have a lot of writings from the Essenes. Matter of fact, we have barely no writings from the Essenes. A lot of the writings that we do have that kind of touch on things that they would have taught would be from the Qumran community, right? They are pretty much the spiritual successor of the Essene group. When you see the situation where the Qumran community have decided to avoid dealing with the temple because they felt the temple was corrupt and the temple was no longer Kodesh or holy. They believed that the priests in the temple, they were no longer holy. They felt that they was compromised by the Greeks and so forth. They decided to live on the outskirts of society, and they decided to keep their teachings and understandings within their own circle. They had a rites of passage as well. They had our initiation process as well. And they lived as a community on the outskirts of society. So in order for them to hold to the text of the Tanakh that they had to reinterpret certain things in order for them to sustain their spirituality on the outskirts of a society that they believe is corrupt. So what they did was they started to abstain from meat. The reason why they started to abstain from meat and became vegetarians is because, number one, it's easier to sustain yourself off of crops than it is from animals, right? And what they decided was that, hey, all the animals that are being slaughtered and offered for meat on the markets, they were slaughtered ritualistically by heathen or people who are corrupt. And we're not going to eat the meat of an animal that was slain by somebody that had corrupt hands or a Gentile. We're just not going to do that, right? So, or something that was slaughtered alongside pork or other unclean things. They just was not going to do that, right? So they decided, hey, the best thing is to reinterpret the scripture to say anytime we see anything that refers to somebody eating flesh, it is symbolic, it is figurative, and that we can better sustain ourselves as being vegans or vegetarians than we can from eating meat. You got to look at the area where they was at. There's not a lot of grazing ground for animals in that region. You can plant certain crops and eat and sustain off of it. And again, they believe they can go and just pluck the grains for themselves off the outskirts of society, because Torah says that if somebody has a field and you have crops and stuff that fall to the ground, leave it there for the poor to go pick it up so they can eat and sustain themselves. So there was always those type of crops that were there. Most of the herding of the animals were owned by somebody who were doing pastoralism. So now we have a situation where they're reinterpreting the text and then looking at it in regards to veganism and being a vegan because it suits what they're doing. The temple also, they made the temple spiritual or something that was heavenly because they no longer access the temple because they believed that the temple was corrupt. The Essenes were the first ones to bring all of these ideologies that was then shared by the Qumran community and later on the Nazarenes and Ebionites. So do I believe that studying the Essenes is critical to understanding historically how do we get a lot of the understandings that we have today? Yes. Do I believe that they played a leadership role to the people who cleaved unto them at that time? Yes, they do. Do I believe that the Essenes and then the Qumran community had an influence on Messianism that Yahusha brought forth? Yes. Was his disciples also influenced by that? Yes, they were. Was John the Baptist possibly part of the Qumran community? Yes, that possibility is there. So they do have a profound impact on the psyche of the culture at that time. But remember, before the Maccabean revolt, the Essenes did not exist. Now, maybe some of those ideologies did, but there was no real sect or clique that embodied them. Same thing with the Pharisees, same thing with the Sadducees, same thing with the Zealots. A lot of these things did not exist when Israel was in their sovereign state in the Iron Age 1, Iron Age 2, A, B, and possibly C periods of time. These peoples did not exist. So before at that time, I felt that, oh, we can get to the oldest traditions by going through the Qumran community and back to the Essenes, and they can take us back to the source. But then I realized historically that's not true because they didn't exist during the time of Moses. That sect did not exist. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to, to interrupt you. But I must say it has like 3% power left on it.
Okay, go ahead.
On it, so
floor's yours.
I did want to say some things in regards to what what you're saying, about what's called the Qumran community, and I would like to have like a dialogue with you in regards to some of the confusion which I think has been brought about with the connection between the writers of the Dead Sea Scrolls and that of the settlement, the what's called the Kirbet of Qumran, the ruined settlement of the geographic region of Qumran. If there's something that you would like to do, in the future.
Okay, so you say, so you want to have a formal discussion on that? I would love that. That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason I say is because a lot of scholars, who are, whether whether a Christian or Jewish, Israelite, or otherwise, the connection between the scrolls or the caves and what the scrolls were found and this ruined settlement, in my opinion, which I can prove it, it's based on a faulty assumption, which is not inherent in the actual scrolls themselves, or that's embedded in their practices. And that's why, I want to have a dialogue with you so we can talk about it, and I can share what I found in my research based of what I come to read about in the scrolls themselves, and comparing like accounts from Josephus, Philo, Pliny, etc., and different other scholars who also who are also of the, whether they are of the, for the Quran community, or if they are, if they hold to the what's called the Essene hypothesis, or those who are not against it, and those who are like on the middle ground. You see what I'm saying? But I think there's like a ball of confusion, because as you have said, it's like shit, fucking phone died. Yeah.
Hello? Okay. That was definitely interesting and enlightening. I would love to hear the brother's perspective. Those of y'all who know me know that I'm open to conversation. You understand what I'm saying? And insights that people bring. I'm a student before anything, right? Before I teach anything, I have to first be a student to glean. And everybody has a unique insight that they can bring to help with my edification and with my development. You know what I'm saying? And I appreciate that brother for sharing that perspective. And I'm definitely going to give him the time of day so we can discuss that. I'll make sure I have all my references on hand. Make sure he has his references on hand. We can just cross exchange them. We can build and have a constructive dialogue that'll be beneficial to everybody, because I would love to hear what the brother has to say. So I'm very fair and equitable when it comes to that. You know what I'm saying? So if anybody else want to have a dialogue with me or want to share something along those lines of whatever insight that they may have on something, let me know. We can set it up and we can have the discussion. No problem. All right. So I'm gonna thank everybody who the individuals that joined in on the platform and had a discussion with me. I appreciate it. Everybody in the chat, thank y'all for joining in. Somebody asked me they want the link for the patriarchal priesthood in the Bible. So let me go ahead and give y'all that link before I let you go. I mean, if you type it up, you should be able to get it. Do a search in YouTube, but let me make it easy for y'all. All right, so let me get that. And in there, when you go back and check it out, you'll see that I do talk about the Essenes in there, and I do go into the Quran community. I do go into the Nazarenes and Ebionites in there. So I do touch on that, so you can get some background on what we were talking about, and also give some sources in case you want to go back and read on it. I got several books on that too, so I'll probably bring it out when me and the brother have the discussion. But let me go ahead and post this link here in the chat so you guys have it. So this is part 1. And the part 2 should be up next to it in the video suggestions. All right. And Deborah, that's a great analogy, right? A great parallelism that you're doing in regards to pre-exilic, post-exilic, and the early Messianic movement and the Roman Catholic Church element. That's a great parallel. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to you for that. Shout out to Between the Lions in the building. Thank you for your input. I appreciate y'all in the chat. Revolutionary Me is in here with us. Shout out to you, sis. Daniya Yisrael. Shabbat Shalom to you as well. Reliable Andrew in here like always. I appreciate his input as well. And I think that's everybody. Chaos is in here as well. Black Av 1 and everybody else. Israelite, wake up. Shout out to you as well. So shout out to all y'all who joined in. Again, I'm closing out right now. I apologize to y'all for not having the Nuwaupian. Maybe next time. I don't know. If y'all can hunt down a Nuwaupian for me and let them know that I want to have a discussion in regards to their perspective on Hebrew doctrine. I would love to have a discussion with them as well. Just make sure that they're prepared for the depth of the conversation, because it's definitely not going to be surface level when it comes to my position on being an Israelite. All right. And what is coined Hebrew doctrine. So I would definitely love to have the conversation. So if you guys can find one that's qualified enough to have the discussion, I would love to speak to them for the edification of the audience. Again, I'm asking and pleading for intervention so I do not become food for the gods. That's the worst thing that can happen, you know, especially when you have your whole life ahead of you. You got a family and you got friends that care about you, you know, and you're trying to do the most you can for the Most High, you know, for another entity just to come and just get hungry and decide to just eat you, and you come up missing. You know, that's terrifying. Especially looking at how these deities look like in these cuneiform tablets with images of these deities. It's really just horrifying, you know. So I mean, I'm just saying, please, somebody, if you can get into Nuwaupian to intervene, I would love that, to tell me where I'm going wrong so I don't become food for the gods. And we can have a good build, respectful build as well. Y'all know, those of you familiar with this channel know that, you know, I let people get their points in. I let them talk, share their point of view, whatever the case may be. There's no cursing on this channel. Y'all know that. I don't curse on this channel. I'm not explicit on this channel. It's very respectful. Families watch this. I get messages, emails, inboxes from people who have families and say, you know, our family, we sit here and we watch, you know, what you have on this channel. So I'm mindful of that. I have an obligation to the community to be respectful and fair to the audience that's actually watching. And I believe that if you're confident in what you stand on, you can, and you're creative enough, you can find a plethora of different ways to convey your thoughts without cursing. Even if you are frustrated, you can still express it in a way where it doesn't come off where you have to be vulgar. You understand what I'm saying? So I want this channel to be accessible to all ages. You know what I'm saying? And I thank the Most High for providing me with a platform to do that. And I thank everybody who supports this platform as well. To the people that ask me about donation, you can donate, you know, to the links that'll be in the, and once the video is posted, I'm gonna post the links for the donation. It's gonna be in the description. You guys can click on there if you want to do a PayPal donation. GoFundMe is Kingdom Harbinger. PayPal is kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, or you could do a super chat donation as well. Again, I just apologize for not giving you guys the show that I was anticipating on tonight. But thank you for hanging with me anyway for this almost 2 to 3 hour long session, which I was trying to cut much shorter than this. But I think it was edifying enough. I think you guys got enough good content that you could take away from this, and some new tools that you can use in your walk in the path that you're paving for yourself and your family, your community. And just remember, you know, keep the servant mindset, stay humble. You know, keep the egalitarian ideology in your mind as well. Treat people with fairness and respect, and be diligent in doing so. You know, serve Yah as best as you can. You know, keep these statutes, laws, and commandments, and just strive your best every day for perfection. You know, and you're not always going to succeed at it. But the thing is, even if you're knocked down, don't stay down. Staying down is an option. Getting up again is another option, but the getting up one is a greater option, and it's a greater testament of your character than being laid down and laid out. All right, so love you, family. Thank y'all for watching. You know, hope to see y'all again. Please share this video if you enjoyed it. You can also donate if you enjoyed the content as well. Again, like I said, I'm open up for discussions, possible debates. Just have people email me. I'll put the email in the chat. If you want to have an open discussion dialogue with me, if you want to have a debate with me, whatever the case may be, or you know somebody that does, just feel free to have them email me and we can set it up. So far, since this year started to now, this is the 15th failed attempt to have somebody on this platform to have a discussion about something they disagree upon and or a debate. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe I have bad fortune or something like that. I don't know. Maybe y'all can help me with that. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, family, much love to y'all. Thank y'all for watching. You know, like I said, at the end of the day, this is my gift to you. And I hope to continue to have the capacity by Yah's will to continue to serve my community. So please pray for my strength so that way I may strengthen others. All right. So I love you, family. Man, I know you're tired. One mind, one body, Yah spirit. I'm tired as well. We're going to end off on a good note, having good things on our minds, and stay prayerful and continue to meditate. What is meditation? You do what? When you do your murmurs, you muse over them. Let the murmurs out, the thoughts, the stresses, you vent it out under your breath to Yah, and you muse over everything that you're letting out. And you try to do it to a melody that's in your mind or that's in your heart. And when you're able to do these things, you'll see you'll be able to let go and detoxify from so much waste that's pent up in your spirit that you have a clear path to worship Yah. Keep that in mind, family. Keep that in mind. So I love you guys. Leila Tov. And I'll see you again. Peace and shalom.